It should be fine now.
There you go.
Sorry.
Feedback.
So come up, stand next to the table.
Yeah.
Next to.
So I'll speak on the enhancements and landscaping side, and then I'll let Charles talk about the decoders and so forth.
Might want to reintroduce yourself. again.
Okay, I apologize. So I'm Daniel Lua. I'm the account manager of FishHawk, 15 years experience. And this is Charles, irrigation manager for FishHawk as well. So for the Sagewood sod project, we are in the middle of completion. There's a few areas that we still need some repairs or rectifications, but we missed it or needs to be leveled out. We're going to take care of that. We took care of it today and tomorrow. If there's anything that needs to be relooked, just let me know an address and we'll take care of it as well. And also the cleaning, the final cleaner will be tomorrow as well. That means anything that's maybe on the driveways, but with the tiller or the skid steer, we'll take care of that. But everything's going pretty good. We used St. Augustine with a variation called Palmetto. It's a hardier St. Augustine and it's more drought tolerant because a lot of these homes in Sagewood, they're on pensions and they can't water as often. So we have to get something that's going to be functional and on their budget.
Good afternoon, my name is Charles, irrigation manager of Sunrise Landscape. I've done irrigation for 30 years, many experience, water management, so on and so forth. As far as the decoders goes, all the decoders have been replaced. When we started the project, we had a decoder issue. We tracked it, diagnosed the system is back online. We already checked every single one of the homes in Sagewood and got into a growing program for the next 15 days. And we got perfect coverage on everything.
Now we have no video.
You put video. It's your time.
Question for you on the decoders. The decoders are for the common areas.
For the coming areas, yes.
Eyes
Controller
are-
was
We got
displaying
it.
ADM module fault, which was causing the whole system to be down. So we took the time and dedication to rectify it.
Playground, some place to.
Our decoder completely shut out and took the system out. It's already been replaced and resolved.
Okay, good. Good to hear.
So one of the entries that I just saw just before this meeting on Town Square was irrigation problem, broken irrigation from the new sod in Sagewood. Is that something you handle?
That's already been taken care of.
There's also.
I love
There's
it.
also.
What kept you?
Yeah, another post in there about, they showed some pictures of some spacing that wasn't quite right, where they kept the sod and stuff, right, so we clean up to go back and take a look at some of it. So of course,
We would always go back and check within a week, make sure the sod is driving and everything's still getting good coverage. If there's any adjustments we have to make, we will rectify at that time. We also took care of the repairs that were on the front with drip line and then just getting good coverage.
With the tree, we had a tree.
Yeah, that, I was just gonna say, there's dead plants out there. Is-
When we released this stump grinding, some of the drip line was cut. That's all we were.
Okay, so that's gonna be.
I walked by, so someone broke the chip line.
Yes, I took that.
We definitely will.
Okay, great.
Wonderful. And then once we get up and running with that folio, they will have a vendor portal. Dana's going to do the login and check all tickets at live status and maintain it.
This is amazing.
I'll play for you.
And we are most likely going to have weekly, at least monthly, but probably weekly with our new camp meetings to go over open tickets as far as landscaping goes.
So what I do with Jennifer is I do a spreadsheet. I give you a date that was inspected and the date was completed, and any comments I have. And those comments usually include permanent solutions to things that are ongoing.
And just so you know, moving on in the future, once you see the vendor portal, you'll be able to enter all that detail instead of the spreadsheet. We'll all have access to it.
Awesome.
I've just
Love that.
There was one more repair that we finished today. There was a gate valve that was leaking by the playground. We're ready to take care of it. We're gonna be back online tomorrow to make sure it is right and settled. And we'll cover the hole and we should be good after that.
You're talking about next to the pool and the
The one,
Yes, that one, yes, took care of that.
All right, cool. That's all I think we have for landscaping. I just don't want to keep them here too long. I know we have Westlake fencing and landscaping. Do we need Sunrise?
Yeah, he and I have gone over some changes to the quote that had to be done, and I haven't had a chance because we've been doing this transition we're working on, but
No problem.
I had full intention of calling the first week to go over some of this again.
Sounds amazing. That's what I plan. Thank you so much. Sure.
I don't think we need landscaping anymore unless anyone has any other questions. I just don't want to keep these guys here for a whole boring meeting.
So I was gonna say, anybody online have any
Yes,
questions?
anything.
Okay, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Pleasure
to
meet you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Likewise.
Appreciate
And I'll
that.
have my pass next time.
They do the whole community, right? Not just everyone.
No, all acres.
Oh, okay.
Okay, committee reports.
I think you need to report on the landscaping project that's been put on hold till September, which I wanted to try to planning to cool off a little bit, maybe the end of August, but Danny and I will schedule it, tell you what's going on.
Social committee probably will meet up probably end of August. After school starts and everything, so we'll get through all that and then we'll start moving forward with the planning for kind of the fall stuff. Yeah. All those other activities that as we get closer to them.
On the finance committee side of things, we will be scheduling a budget workshop and trying to get that done this coming month, after transition.
Do we have an art committee member either on Zoom or in the room? No, okay.
Who's the liaison to the art committee?
I'm the liaison.
Sorry. put the camera on.
Okay, we'll move on to old business. I have here, first item is approval of ARC documentation rewrite. That is really approval of the ARC charter rewrite. I'll hand it over to Mark. We have talked about this.
So we've been talking about this for a few months now, couple months, and it's gone through a bunch of rewrites, a lot of changes. I have it pulled up now, so if you have recommended changes, everything you've emailed me or sent to me in email, I have incorporated in one way or another. Some of the recommended changes, they run counter to our founding documents, and so they can't be incorporated into the charter. Some of the changes I made to match the founding documents. So what you have right now, what was issued before this, is the version 4, and that should be the version that we can go with. So some of the big changes we had to make. Let's see, Article 3, Section 4 of this document was committee members may serve no more than 2 consecutive 2-year terms on the same committee. That's in the bylaws. And so even though we'd like committee members to serve as long as they want to volunteer, this isn't the bylaws. So until we get the community as a whole to change the bylaws, this has to be part of the document. Another topic was regular meetings. I know that there was a recommendation, sir. I think you made the recommendation to outline how frequently they should meet. Once a month, twice a month. I feel like I want to leave that more open and just say regular meetings. They do meet twice a month right now. But if there's no reason for them to meet, if they have no art requests, then there's no reason to dictate that they get together. If they can solve everything in 1 meeting a month or 2 meetings a month, maybe they want to meet more, maybe they want 3 times a month. So I want to leave them the art committee itself the leeway to meet as frequently as they need to meet. Special meetings is something in there.
Could I ask a question?
Yes, sir, go ahead.
Think about it. But, so will they establish some kind of regularity so the community would know when that?
Yes,
I think
so
that was the point.
right now they do meet with regularity every other, was it Thursday, right?
Every other
Thursday.
Thursday, I think it's 8:30 or 8:30 tonight.
Mhm.
What you're looking for and what I really like is in AppFolio's portfolio, when the homeowner logs in, they click on calendar, they'll see every upcoming meeting. So, and the idea of not putting it in documents is this way, if we have to change them on the fly,
Right.
Mondays or Tuesdays or.
Yeah, I wasn't recommending changing the document, but it says regular meeting, so
Yeah.
that, how would that regularity? I think we should have a set schedule, or at least even just say, a month out, it looks pretty quiet, we're only gonna have 1 or something. So if somebody wants to meet, we can plan for it.
But yeah, and that we would do on the calendar, hands down. Sometimes it's a holiday or if Daniel's out of town, we may have to push it.
Last Thursday's Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Well, what I was talking about was more the concept that even if they have 1, and they determine that that's not enough for a meeting, the homeowner needs to know that if they submitted it on time for that 1, that they're going to be heard sometime in the near future. And it stands right now,
they're not required to meet at any time. So if they have one or two and they think it's not important, that homeowner's not gonna know that it's gonna be seen.
So from what I've seen from the way the art committee works is they don't, no request is too small. One, unless you've seen evidence to the contrary, let me know, please, and I'll communicate with the chair. But one request is enough to have a meeting because that homeowner is waiting
Right.
to start their project.
Exactly.
So, and I believe they do a lot of the meetings by Zoom, so it's not that much of an inconvenience to meet and discuss and adjourn.
All of them are by Zoom, and there's more than one set of eyes. Jennifer has to go through all the applications and notify the residents. So,
I've gone through all of that.
yeah, so it would never be the case where there would be one pushed more than. There
I
hasn't been
just
yet.
think homeowner that's has an unspecified period of time,
Yeah,
it can make them a little nervous, and then if it's shown them, it's gonna be twice, but he's the only one on there, and they're not required to have a meeting, you know, create some anxiety, whereas they're required to have a meeting.
what if we change the verbiage to read a minimum of 12 annual meetings? You know, you're getting at least one. Or a minute.
Why not say one of them?
Because they might have two.
Oh,
They can
well,
have
he's
two.
saying a minimum.
Minimum.
If you say a minimum
Right, yeah.
of one a month.
Right, I agree. I agree with John, because if you're planning a project, you kind
Fair
of
enough.
get that anxious of, is this gonna go through? Agreed.
So are we in agreement to that wording?
Okay, so I'll change it. The committee shall hold meetings at a date and time prescribed by the committee chairperson, but must meet a minimum of once a month. So, yeah. All right.
While Mark does that, I'll explain my last part. I was talking to Mark just as he came in.
Mhm.
We were kind of discussing earlier, the ARC has to go out on site, check the property, do their due diligence. It doesn't necessarily make sense, at least flow. I was working on flow of ARC applications. They have the ARC go out, let's say 6 months later to make sure that that was done properly and close the ticket. With this system, we're gonna have all of their notes already in the system on the residence unit page. So when we have a CAM already out doing violations, she should also be checking any ARCs that are 6 months old, looking at the project's been done and closing it. That also takes a little bit of burden off the ARC.
Right.
Thoughts?
I think that if we say that the chairman can delegate to a member of the staff, that would be better, because we do need, I really feel like this is an area where the homeowners, interaction with the homeowners and the board at large needs to be really clear to them. When they put something in, this is the process it goes through, and this is what they can expect. Now, inspection, even though it's a requirement to follow up by the ARC, the follow-up can be delegated to the CAM or someone else who will update the file and give them the information so that they can close it.
That's what I'm proposing. Instead of having the follow-up be by the ARC, the follow-up is just write it in, it will be done by me.
I think that's great. I think that's
And
great.
they can close it if it's okay. If it's not, they will kick it back to the ARC to say.
ARC is gonna file them all as approved. After that, it's just a time period. Once it hits 6 months, then the CAM needs to go out, inspect the property, see that it was done per the ARC's already typed in inspection. If that's the case, she can then mark it as done. And it drops off in the AR. That's my thought process behind it. Otherwise, Daniel needs to run the reports, find out what's been 6 months, and then delegate it out to members of the committee. I see that being a little cumbersome to get around, especially when you already have someone that's already doing weekly bypass on the property. Only reason I just didn't see a full circle working very well if it's all in the ARC.
So I'll change the wording of that to say for all ARC requests, management will conduct site inspections at the 6-month conclusion of the project to ensure project was completed in accordance with the approved ARC request and the ARC guidelines.
I think it's good.
Mark, do you have the actual paragraph that cites the term for committees? I have one for the board, but I don't see one for the committees.
Yeah, stand by. It's in the bylaws.
Yeah, I'm in the bylaws. That's what I was looking at.
Try page 14. Let me see. Hold on, let me get to it here.
The paragraph, the committee, 4 dot whatever, the committees is 5 dot something. Committee section is 5.1. See, okay. Serve no more than 2 consecutive 2-year terms on the same committee.
Yeah.
So our charter, the reason I brought this up is our charters were written by our previous manager, and some of them are written contrary to that.
Mhm.
So we probably should go back and correct that if that's, the correct thing. I'll look those up and bring up for the next meeting. So
Our charters are gonna have a little bit of inconsistency on that word.
Okay.
Um,
So we're talking about more looking at the bylaws or looking at the chart?
Well, this is correct. So no committee member can serve on the committee more than 2 consecutive terms, 2-year terms. So a total of 4 years on the same committee. If you look at our other charters, that's not reflected.
but the important part there is consecutive. If they take a break and come back, they can serve again.
Yeah.
Sure. I'm just trying to keep track.
How involved
Yeah.
do we want the ARC committee
Flipping back and forth.
violations? Because there is another paragraph in here about that. And I'm wondering if nobody really mentioned having an issue with it, but it seems that the direction this is going is we want the ARC committee kind of removed from handling violations and push that more on violation. 100%. Okay, so I'll take that out then.
Where's that?
Or do we have
What
the
section are you
violation
talking
committee
about?
yet? Or is that a question?
I'm looking at the ARC charter, the draft,
Right.
section 2,
Mhm.
duties and powers, under the chairman, the 4th bullet. For all ARC violations, the chairperson will ensure inspections are conducted in accordance with the guidelines and the violation enforcement and finding procedure. This is actually, I believe this is a carryover paragraph from the previous version.
Yeah, it is.
And so if we don't want the ARC committee to be involved in violations, then that paragraph should come in.
Well,
So
or it could be
strong.
rewritten.
Article 2,
Article 2.
Section
Article
2.
two.
This part.
One other way to do it would be you could keep that, but just say we'll coordinate with management. So if they go out and see something, they don't get involved in violation, they just
Yeah.
report it to the camp.
I agree with Nick. It's
It's
not
not
saying
Article
that they can't report it. If they see something that was wrong.
Article 2 here, function.
Because the ensuring remedial actions are completed within a specified time, that is involved in the violation. So I think if we just make it, we'll coordinate with management to ensure and report
Okay.
deficiencies to
I
the
was gonna say
management and the board.
Article 5.
And then it's the
Thank
management and the
you.
board's responsibility to then step in and say, right? I mean, if they're gonna go and do an inspection, it's
So we
something
have a
right.
separate violations committee, correct?
Yeah.
Which they're not.
Theoretically.
I was
So
gonna say, do we have an active committee? Because
We're
we
supposed to.
only had 2 people on it.
two different things. There's no violations committee, there are violations that need to go out and are going to be done by the camp. The finding committee is once a fine is assessed. And whatever is left of it, we will be reassembling here shortly as soon as Will gets back from this.
Mr. Chair.
Mystery pit.
So, so what we're really saying is that in this section right here, once the ARC has approved the application, it then moves it over to the inspection side. So it's subject to all inspections. Theirs is just a unique inspection, and it's looking to see that they did complete properly what they were approved to do. Now, there are other violations she's always looking at as well, but it would fall in that process of what we're doing.
Yep.
Not clear on that?
Yeah.
So you're going to delete that there?
I I agree with what you're saying, Matt, but I think it adds a layer of complication,
Okay,
just because
take it out.
they don't do violations.
Less is more.
They're responsible for everything up to the approval. So pre-inspection, go out and look at the site,
Right.
make sure they've included access. Once they say, yep, you're good to go with your project, the committee is done with it. Right, okay.
No problem.
Does anybody else have any recommended changes to this?
So I had one,
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, I didn't make any
Okay.
recommendations because you're so robust.
this goes with my size, I think. At any rate,
Yes.
in draft,
That's it.
in the draft I got before this one, where it talks about qualifications. It says, an owner or resident of any unit in Fish Hawk whose dues incurred, blah, 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 standard road language. In the last one, it says, qualifications. ARC committee members need not be owners or representative of owners.
That's correct.
That's correct.
Because
Yeah.
as Kathy pointed out, that makes this consistent with our charter.
What charter?
The Kathy.
The-
Our actual legal charter.
Our charter,
HOA.
our HOA.
So,
In a nutshell, we can't change that yet. Once we change our charter, we word that properly and get a 70% neighborhood vote for the change.
so this is what I'm saying here. There's a possibility here we could have an ARC who's completely made up of strangers who do not own any property.
Nope.
So me and Tommy went round and round about this.
It's possible. but it's not possible.
Our committee, because our committee members are appointed by the board.
Right.
Us. So if somebody from Riverview, somebody from Tampa or St. Pete says, hey, I want to be part of, for whatever reason, I want to be part of Fish Hawk West's art committee board, even though I don't live there and I don't own a house there. Then this board will say, thank you for volunteering, but no, you don't live here.
But the charter specifically says an owner or a resident. It doesn't say a non-resident.
Right.
Need not be owners or representative.
Need not be owners or
Yeah,
representative of owners.
Right, but they need to be a resident.
They
It
have to be a
specifically says that has to be a
it
resident.
doesn't say that.
It doesn't say that.
It does.
Under section 3, it says members
Not
of the
this
committee.
doesn't.
can be
Not this
selected.
one.
the
but
charter
the
does.
HOA.
Well, I do, I thought it
And
did say
18 years of
resident.
age. you also
For the board,
For,
for the board, not for a committee.
Oh, you might be right about that.
I don't have it. in front, but it's
If
not-
you want to pull it up, we can.
no,
No,
We're adjusting on the fly. We want to get this thing approved today, so let's pull it up and let's look for it. Let's make
No,
the
I think
sausage.
I think your thing saying is that the board is the safeguard
That's right.
to ensure somebody has a vested interest in the community. And the whole purpose of having this is to maintain the community.
If somebody's a renter and they want to be on the board or they want to be on the committee, fantastic.
And when
That's
Kathy,
great.
when Kathy sent out that great email, by the way, and then when she said that we literally went back and copied and pasted verbatim, so that it matches, so that we know it doesn't sound great, we're not really happy with it, but it's what's in the chart.
so in 5.1
So-
of Article 5 of the committees in the bylaws,
Okay.
it doesn't specifically state one way or the other there. So is this in the charter or the bylaws?
That was all in the charter. You're in the charter now, or you're-
If he's walking up, he knows the answer.
That's the design review committee upon, that's a subsection of the charter. Owners or representatives, this is the subsection of the charter, but I'm looking at, that's talking specifically about the architectural committee.
Mhm.
Wow,
Sean, I'm happy to be wrong, but just let me know.
that's what I'm looking at.
The more I think about it is that was put in by the developer, so the developer could put on the dartboard that wasn't
Mhm.
a resident
Here,
or.
That's it. Yep, that's probably why.
So
It
why
does
couldn't,
cite, it does cite the 5.2 of the bylaws, which is what I was reading. It's what's using as a reference.
Well, that makes sense why they would do that, because the developer is not a resident.
Right.
But they could have put a clause that says, and when the developer turns it over, this no longer stopped.
They did not.
so let me ask, suggest, if we take the section 1 that talks about an owner or resident of any units, and put that section in there down to the point where it says it's eligible to be a member of the committee, then we pick up right here where it says committee members need not be owners or representative owners. And then finish that out with the member of the board is an ex officio. a combination of the two, where we basically satisfy this part where an owner, we're not saying that they're required to be qualified. We're not saying it's a qualification. An owner or resident of the unit that are current with the compliance charter, bylaws, regulations is eligible to be a member of the committee. Then we go on and say the members need not be owners or representatives of owners. And then we go on to say a member of the board shall be official. That kind of covers the fact that we're not ignoring that homeowners can be members of this. They're not qualified. They're only referred to them under section 2 down here that says appointments. The inconsistency between section 1 and section 3 is pretty obvious in the latest one, because we're only addressing qualifications as being anybody who wants to be on the committee don't have to be owners or representative at all, period. You know, but then in section 2, we're saying that in order to be a member, you have to qualify as being a HOA member.
Yeah.
So
It's
So we're
contradictory.
inconsistent with the two. So
Right.
if we make section 1 under the previous, where it refers to an owner resident may be of any unit.
So I see what you're saying. So Article 3, Section 3, members of the committee shall be selected by the board from a pool of HOA members who express interest. Is that the part you're talking about?
No, I'm talking about
So that
section 1.
contradicts the
That part,
qualifications.
the first part that we have now, where it now says, it just says ARC committee members need not be owners or representatives of owners. It doesn't say who's qualified. We're saying that these people, these are exception people that are qualified, but we haven't talked about the majority of them, which are homeowners. Their dues are paid up, you know, and they're in compliance with everything so that we know that they're good homeowners. You know, so they're in the pool, they can all be in there, plus we're including owners or representatives of owners. If they not be owners or not represent owners. Then down below, when we're talking about section 3, I would leave it pretty much the way it is, that we're only going to pull from we're not going to pull from the whole pool of qualified members. We're only going to pull the memberships. Huh?
Can you do that? Can you make it the selection more restringent than the qualification?
That's what they're trying to do.
Oh, I know.
You know, so I think until we get the charter in the sky fixed, that may cover both issues. that
If you
you're
want to
saying.
just put a clause in there at the end that just says, you know, keep it the way it is, right? And then just put, and by exception, a person who is, go back up to the verbiage. Yours to this one.
This is the language that we had in the previous one.
Yeah, I'm working off the others here. So if you just added to section 3 on the appointments, it says we're gonna do that, and then you put like just a clause at the end, it just said, and by exception, and you know, the board can appoint somebody who is a owner or representative of the owner. You know.
Okay, well, maybe that's not what I'm talking about here.
All right.
You're saying that have to be in basically good standing, for example.
I'm saying
That's a
that
condition.
in that draft there with this, we said they have to be homeowners.
Yeah.
And they have to be in good standing, meet all good qualifications.
Or
And then I'm
current
saying
fair
we need to
pay.
Yeah,
add,
yeah.
so then we need to add to that, committee members need not be owners. Just add that to the end of it right there. Okay, and then talk about who the ex officio member is.
But I think you want them to be a resident. I think that's the issue.
Only
Not
if
necessarily,
When we talk about qualifications, in qualification, we only refer to the exceptions. We don't refer to the whole. We don't refer to the fact that they can be homeowner association members.
Well, I'd be hard pressed to find who doesn't understand that. Or how do you? put it?
Okay, so if we're trying to be clear about what we're doing here, and then we say, well, we'll just leave this alone because it's pretty clear, and we don't have the opportunity to be clearer about it, you know.
Okay, what would you like section 1 to say? Rebecca? I'm very confused with everything.
I'm with you, but I,
Slide my draft back.
Max, you want to-
yeah, I'm working off the exact. I printed yours out.
So I think what we should say under section 1
And
is an owner or resident of any unit in Fish Hawk Ranch West whose HOA dues are current and who is in compliance with our charter, bylaws, rules, and regulations is eligible to be a member of the committee. That's the inclusion. The exceptions we're adding is members need not be owners or representative owners. That one sentence right there is the addition of that, where we give special preference to non-HOA members. And then the following sentences, you know, that a member of the board shall be ex officio member and serve between the two bodies. That's all I'm saying is that, and then section 3 is perfectly fine. I personally would have a preference for excluding non-owners.
But can you
From the
make
committee.
that selection? Can you, if your qualification says it's this,
I don't
and then
think
you're
it's
gonna
a-
say, we're just not gonna pick you, then you don't have the qualification.
Okay, so let's just say, members of the committee shall select the board from people in the community that expressed an interest. I mean,
We could put the word prioritize. The board will prioritize hiring people, qualified people who want from the HOA community. And by exception, will accept an exceptionally qualified person that falls into those other categories. It's gonna tell you how you're prioritizing, but you're not excluding them in the hiring process.
Or if we just simply said the members of the committee will select from the qualified members.
We just say that members of the committee will.
Just say down there, members of the committee
Board.
shall be selected by the board
The board.
from a
Period.
pool of
Yep.
qualified
That's it.
members, which
There
are
you go,
mentioned in section
qualified.
1.
Yep, I'm fine with that. We're not excluding.
Qualified, okay, not qualified.
Should a little Wi-Fi broadcasting on this TV up there? Little thingy?
So the-
Comcast.
That way I can put this up there so we can see the phone.
Put your Wi-Fi.
There you go.
I was going to turn us all into IT specialists.
No. My son tries all the time.
True discussion, sure.
Chrome. No, I deleted Chrome. You kind of move.
Shannon, do you know how to cast an anthem without?
Oh, oh.
Maybe.
I haven't been using my.
Comcast won't work on Safari.
It doesn't,
You have to have Comcast.
I think we do that.
Um,
Just, you know what you gotta write.
Don't worry about it. I can read it out loud. What I changed. So
Or you could send it, to- we can,
Or you send it to me and I can get it.
that might be.
I just.
Nope, I'm gonna get it.
Just controls computer.
So
All right, go ahead.
Go for it.
Article 3, membership, Section 1, qualifications. We're bringing back the paragraph, which from the original version, before we started editing. An owner or resident of any unit in Fish Hawk Ranch West whose HOA dues are current and who is in compliance with our charter, bylaws, rules, and regulations is eligible to be a member of the committee. Our committee members need not be owners or representatives of owners. A board member of the board, yada, yada, yada.
Right, I got that.
Then section 2, unchanged. Section 3. Members of the committee shall be selected by the board from volunteers who have expressed interest in serving the community.
I would say qualified. To refer to them under qualifications, so we're reflecting back to the pool of
Mhm,
people
mhm,
we've identified. So I would say selected by the board from the pool of qualified members who have expressed an interest.
Bingo.
I'm good with that.
as a practical matter, I talked to one member of the committee now, who's on the board, and he was saying this 2-year consecutive thing, that we need to give some thought to, we're talking about staggering board members, and then we suggested that we consider staggering people on the committee, not just this committee, but on this
All of
committee.
them first.
So we don't have parts of
Yeah,
it
so the
rolling
committee
off.
doesn't disappear. It goes with the
He was
flow.
saying that right now,
Proposal we put together.
right now, all the committee members are over 2 years, over 4 years. Most of them are over 4, and a few of them, this will be their 4th year, so we're going to wipe out the whole.
Well, but will
ARC.
they be grandfathered in? Is this post facto or is this? It will
We'll
be
have to
in
work
that.
that out. But let's,
Well, is this just for the ARC committee or is this applied to all?
this is just.
Yes, our,
Yeah, they were just pointing out for the all.
And
He
the
said the members got
Committee
are
listeners
long-term
first.
members,
Yeah.
and so all the members, and they have, even though we limited to just 3 members, they have like 6 members on the committee. And he was saying that this has worked out really well for them. So I had suggested not drawing it so tight that there aren't enough people to spread it around. So, most of the committees at Encore require 5 members.
And we say a minimum of 3.
Yeah,
it
you can
says
have-
at least.
Yes.
3 to 7, I think it's right.
So are there any other recommended changes to this ARC review committee charter? No.
It's just 7 or more.
Good.
Yes.
Then I make a motion that we accept this document. A second.
All right.
All in favor?
Uh,
Any opposed? Motion carried. All right. We'll mark it as final and then.
Just don't do it in red. I'm gonna count. Red is not good.
It's in the form.
Okay, so we have Westlake Fence and Landscaping that's been tabled till sometime in September, correct? Approval of ARC documentation rewrite, that has been tabled too, till we can get mail. Okay, new business, Encore violations and
Wait,
inspection.
can I go back
Yes,
to the tree trimming?
did I have that on there? I missed it over there. Yes, tree trimming, Nash, I'm sorry.
We got there yet, have we? Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Um,
under,
This is real quick, but and we're not gonna make the decision now, but I've come up with sort of 3 approaches. Right? One is we just need to educate the community on the hazards of having
What did you just do?
people and urge them to do the right thing and bring their trees up. I've been driving around the neighborhood. There are a lot of trees blocking stop signs, blocking sidewalks. But at a certain point, we should just put a marker on the table and say, okay, you've got 45, 60, 30 days to comply. And then if not, then what do? Then we would be able to fine them because they're in violation of the rules, correct? Then we could use that money to pay for a contractor to fix what they didn't want to do. The third option I have, right, so that's a process. The third process is to just put it in the budget next year and go and just trim trees so they're all 7 to 8 feet, not only above the sidewalks, but above the streets and make the place more passable and drivable.
Socializing the expense for those who don't do their jobs.
Well,
The way I would propose that for 2023 would be as a service level budget for all of Fishkill. So yes, you're right, but in return, you won't have to trim your trees. You're just gonna-
correct, yeah, because you do have to, it's not a trim once and forget, because they have to do it every year.
It's unfortunate truth, and it is an unfortunate problem. The question is, what do we do now? We do this?
We don't,
No.
no budget for it.
In the
Well,
long
the-
run, do we have any concerns about seeking owner approval if we get to go on their property or build the tree that's on their property?
It doesn't matter, we still have the budget for it. It would have to be after the budget's approved.
Well,
I'm not talking about.
Wouldn't
our
it go
budget.
through the planning process if it's not
Yeah,
compliant?
we're talking about forcing residents to trim the trees.
So
Yeah,
So what we really should be doing, I think we're kind of right there, is for this year, put a 60-day notice on it. We need to get your trees trimmed up. If they're not 7 feet, whatever the verbiage may be, violations will be issued.
That's
Are we-
what other
are we-
communities
It's gonna be
do.
hugely unpopular, but I
Yeah,
just
but I mean,
don't see any other choice.
I wouldn't be happy if someone came in and trimmed my trees without my knowledge, especially if I had a pool or something which I don't, I don't know if I did, and something went wrong.
Again, remember, these are trees that overlap the sidewalk and the street.
So we should need permission to go on their property.
At this point, we're not even suggesting doing it. We're just suggesting we have to find the owner to do it themselves.
I know, I'm just going back to what John said about asking, getting permission on their properties and so forth, all these.
So
trees
that
we're
would be,
talking
that
about.
would be a next year thing, right? So we would put it into the budget, everybody would pay X amount, we would include
Okay.
tree trim. So if you didn't want your trees trimmed, you'd have to maintain it.
But then they'd have to maintain it to that standard.
Yeah, and you're still gonna pay for it.
I agree with you, Sean. I'm opposed to socializing expense for everybody for the few that refuse to trim their own tree.
It's not
a
you.
few.
It's not a few. I would say the majority.
Yeah,
Yeah, I just prefer to trim my own trees because I just,
I agree.
There's nothing that stops you from doing it. They're only gonna trim.
if I'm gonna pay for it, why would I, but I'm gonna pay for everybody else's to do my own, that doesn't make any sense.
All right, well, so then that's what I'm saying. This is, we're not gonna solve this today. I'm just saying, to me, those are the only two options. If somebody else has another option, I'm open for it. Either one is you fine and use the fining money to repair, but then you're still into the situation of, now, most of the trees are not because they're on their property, they're on the right of way. property.
I think in this particular, it's not so much fine and use the money for repair. It's by the time you get the money for fining, you still don't have the money for repair. What is this, that you fine and you follow through with the fine? So they're gonna end up doing it, they're gonna be an attorney status, and they're gonna end up doing it. That's how the fining process does flow, right?
Okay.
Yeah, it does.
So, and that's for this year, and I think that is our only option for this year. Come 2023 in our budget workshops, we could talk about.
I was in another neighborhood in Fishhawk, which is gated, but the gate was wide open. My wife and I for a bike ride went through. And the streets look, but clearly the community had chosen to just trim them up off the sidewalk, off, you could tell, and they just, some of them were freshly cut. So that you could drive a pickup truck or, even a delivery truck and drive down the
The
street.
service went through, HOA went through. It's not individually.
And it looks great.
I'll have to say from my own situation, I had a big tree that hangs out over a water cooler. It's on my property. I wish there was CDD, but it's not quite on CDD property, but it is hanging over the CDD property. Basically, they said it's my problem. And so what I did was I hired a guy to come in and he spent about 30 minutes and knocked off all the trees that were causing a problem that were going to fall down on the walkers and drivers and all that sort of thing. It looks really nice now. Got rid of some junk that was up in there. Cost me about $500.
Yeah.
It was
So-
not, it was not a non-credit bill, it was not a CDD bill, it was not a switch off bill. So,
What I propose, what we can do now is I suggest we use the Facebook page to start a public awareness campaign that you're responsible for trimming the tree. Because
Right.
here's the thing with these trees, right? You trim them up to so high, and you don't have to trim them that much anymore because new giant branches are not going to grow out of the base of the tree.
Correct.
So once they get up to a certain height, you trim up 7, 8 feet, you're not going to have to trim very much anymore.
No, higher than that, because particularly the oaks,
Yeah.
they grow down and they drop down.
Regardless, before we start finding people, let's start posting
Yeah,
on
no, no.
Facebook, hey, did you know you're responsible for trimming your tree?
That's
I'm
my point.
all for it. I'm just saying, put a date on it when you will be fine,
Mhm.
because your campaign is not going to go well no matter what you do. At least if we have a full-fledged plan in place, we'll be doing what we said we were. gonna
Well, people want to have a date of when they
And
need
the
to
people
get
that
there.
are gonna
Yes,
comply
I
on a
was gonna
date.
say,
Well,
we
we-
need a finite period of time with this.
But I wrote the same thing that you just said, need to explain how you show the problems and explain, and we can do that for a period of time and then say, and of course, if this is not, the community does not do what they're supposed to, then we're going to have to start using the
And
process.
just around this topic, I think now's a great time. If it is 60 days, the first is right around the corner. Let's just say 60 days, you want to come up with proper wording for it, and let's get it out on the first.
60 days is 2 months. Why can't you do 30 days?
Okay. 30.
Well, because 30 days, then you have to go out and, I mean,
My thought process is if you're not doing it yourself, you have to hire someone. I don't know what that contractor schedule might look like.
Are we ready to do, will we ready to do the finding process within 30
We're
days?
gonna be ready in 60 for sure, 30. no, something.
I'm just saying, when we have to be
No,
able
I
to
agree
send
with
out the paper, we have to be able to get people notice, we're doing a new system, switch over.
that's why we could even let this slide till the next meeting if we need to, but I agree with it that we can start putting, and I'll get pictures, you know, so that it's just, some of them are,
I'm an advocate of trying to enforce it before we start trying to socialize it, because the bottom line is some people aren't aware. There might be a handful that just aren't going to do it. I can probably point those people out already because they're not doing anything.
Yeah.
So those of us who actually try to take care of our yards, like, oh gosh, I didn't even think about that. Let me get my tree done and then go, kind of, no. Will everyone do it? No. That's what the fines are for. So,
So I have a question. We're not part of Hillsborough County.
yes.
Well, Hillsborough County probably has some requirements about trimming trees that
They do.
impede the roads and stuff.
Mhm.
Can we make sure that our standards coincide with their standards?
They do, I believe we've actually even looked at that. It's not so much of a standards problem, it's a problem of Hillsborough County isn't enforcing.
I just want,
Well, he's trying to use this as a guideline for our standards, but I think, right?
Yeah, and I think we looked at that. Right?
Yeah, we did.
I'll go back. I'm not sure.
And they are actually pretty lenient, except for when it comes to electrical wires, which has got quite a few different colors and about the electrical wires around it. And we don't have that issue here, our electrical wires are on the ground. So but yeah, there are some requirements on how high they have to be off the street and so forth. That's just,
okay, that's all.
right, well,
I mean, I haven't been
I'll put
involved
something together.
forever.
Maybe, I think that what would help would be, and you mentioned pictures, not pictures specifically calling out residents, but a
No,
picture
no,
of,
not pictures calling out residents.
this is what
just
your tree
pictures
should
of
look
it.
like, and this is what
Right.
many of them look like.
Right, yeah, that's what I mean, yeah, no,
Better option, better actually.
yeah, no, I'm not gonna, this is not gonna be a shaming campaign, it's gonna be
Perfect,
information,
perfect.
that's exactly what I wrote, I think we can start with that.
Good stuff.
And then,
And then-
you know, we can then look at when it's appropriate, and, because the worst thing is say, oh, well, we're gonna start this in 30 days, and then we can't, or for whatever
Well,
reason.
I was gonna say, if we wanted to do something for the first, I feel more than comfortable with 60 days, 30 days, you get a little please.
Right.
68, feel comfortable, or if you just want to push it till next meeting and we're just like,
All right, well, I'll start working on the other thing, and John, I'll take a look for that. I think I'm theoretically have got more space.
okay, then we'll table that.
Good, that's it.
Uh, Lake house decking and park repair. I got some quotes in just today from JR. JR has them printed for us to take a look at and explain what you guys find.
Reference anything spent on this is from the reserve, so you guys know what's something that I have no budget.
So that's it.
They're pretty straightforward.
Yeah, that's the first thing you
The
say.
only
when it's
one,
not-
the third proposal that he gave me, I don't know why Avi from Finally Finished Homes didn't add in the playground. We sat there and discussed it. Maybe he was supposed to get it on a separate sheet.
He didn't get you a proposal off.
For the playground. For everything else, yes, just not the playground. It's really a toss-up between, for me, between Finally Finished Homes and Solo Construction, which is actually Tampa Bay, so Tampa, Tampa Bay, Tampa Bay.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch what you said at the beginning, JR.
The third bid from Finally Finished Homes doesn't have the bid for the playground repairs. I don't know why we sat over there and discussed it, he didn't add it in there.
Just the deck.
Just the deck, and the stair repairs. And the graphics. The only difference is finally finished homes is willing to get in there. They're gonna through bolt each one of these posts that are on the deck to prevent it from sagging again. Because right now they're just nailed in, which is not really the way you're supposed to do it. You're supposed to put a through bolt all the way through that piling and connect it into the 2x8 that's underneath it that's supporting the whole deck.
That's finally
And
finished.
that's why it kind of sagged down, because it just busted off the nails, either too much weight or too wet, whatever the case may be. So he is put in there in that quote to shore that up with through bolts all the way to the bench at the end from the corner, which is pretty significant. Job. So it's really between the first two. Heckler Construction, I kind of knew he was going to throw a big number at us. He wants to really physically replace everything. And with the two other, depending on what they find underneath the steps and what's supporting it, they might have to replace a little bit more wood, but we're talking about maybe $300-400 more, depending on how much wood's rotten underneath there and how much they have to replace.
So I guess without the place set on finally finished, we're mixing apples and.
Without the playground repairs. Now, also to run into that, when you see with the expense of the two other bids for the playground, based on what I found in other models that are very similar to that playground, for a brand new exact one, just like that, somewhere between 2 and 5. So we're spending $2,500 around to repair that one when you get a brand new one for between 2 and 5.
You mean 25,000?
$2,000 and $5,000. A brand new one. Actually, most of them within that range are a little bit bigger with a swing set on the side and such.
So
I just wanted to add that in there, so you have that to think about when you say, well, do I want to invest $2,500, $2,000 into the playground, or should we just plan on investing in a brand new playground instead of fixing the one we currently? Because it's only one structure that's really significantly damaged. I mean, significantly to fall.
I would probably repair it for 2,500, this way it all looks good, matches, fades together.
At the end of the day, I mean, really, it's your call. I felt comfortable with Jeff from the Tampa Deck Builders. I felt comfortable with him. I also felt comfortable with Hobby. He seemed like he knew what he was doing from finally finished homes. He's also right here in Fishhawk.
So they're saying that the playground's $2,500 so far. So
Just to reshore it up, and that's basically to replace those posts and get it back set into the ground properly, as opposed to just sitting on that frame piece that it's really on. And that's really all it's holding it to the ground. It's not actually posted into the ground. So this will shore it up so it's concrete underneath.
It sounds like Hector's out, and it's between Soco and Finally, but we don't have.
Exactly.
Yeah, so we actually need a quote for this.
For the playground to make, unfortunately, he just got here. We had an issue with phones and he made schedule to come, never came. Finally, he got here just yesterday. So we finally gave that quote. So he was just here yesterday. I don't know why he didn't send it over. I didn't get a chance to review it. I just sent it right over to Tommy as soon as I saw it. So I was like, "Send it right over."
you don't think that the difficulties of getting together with him are going to keep,
I'm sorry.
you don't think that the difficulties of connecting with him are going to bleed on? And
Well, actually, it was
actually get the work done on time?
It was an office problem with their phones, and somehow the manager deleted my message and couldn't get back in touch with me. So upon my second or third attempt to get back in touch with him, he answered. He told me, "Hey, I missed your message. It somehow got deleted." He was having problems with his phone system. Is the way it is. But once I did get in touch with him, he had a guy on property in 24 hours. So
Sure, explain this to me real quick. So it's $2,500 at the Sophos construction, $2,500 to fix the playground, $1,900 and $1,200 for what?
you have the sagging on the deck over here, and at the other end, you have a stairwell as you walk out towards the lake. A lot of that wood down there is rotted, and I'm concerned that the rising slope steps right there are going to be damaged.
So is this 3,100 here quoted to fix the same thing that this 4,600 was quoted to fix here?
Both. Both these,
Right, so this 1,900 and 1,200, that's 3,100.
yeah, everything except for the playground. He's doing the same work.
So if we remove the playground from this quote, we just say 3,100 or 4,600 to fix the same thing.
Correct.
Who's gonna do a better job?
But see,
The other guy
like I said,
do
he's
both.
gonna through both. I don't know what Jeff's, he didn't indicate how he was securing, and that's a significant amount of work and, you know, extras to it. So, and it was also a better option for the long term as far as the safety of the deck and it not sagging again.
So I have a suggestion. Suggestion would be to table this. Till we get the rest of this quote.
I'll talk to him tomorrow morning.
And you
Yeah.
can follow up, find out how he's gonna fix it.
Yeah, because he didn't really put that in there, what his intentions are for what hardware he was gonna use. So a lot of times they just assume they're gonna do it the way it was previously done, which is not what something that's already breaking.
That's
Yeah.
Not gonna solve the problem.
Yes.
Yeah, so clarify, I think that's a good point. Clarify how they're going, if one guy's gonna do it, and then the other one say, hey, what's your price on fixing the thing?
And I'll tell you another thing, I'm not gonna go with him. If he puts there could be extra charges added. That's a big negative.
Well, the issue is that a lot of that wood's rotted in there. So once we
That's
pull it
fine,
out,
then you can come out and take a look at all of it and get a trowel and dig in the dirt or whatever. This guy doesn't say that.
I do agree with.
he
Mark.
did tell me that. That's what I kind of, I let you guys know, like, if there's gonna be a little bit,
There could be.
could be a
like
couple $100 difference depending on what wood's rotten underneath there, because you have to pull the wood apart.
that. And that's fine, but a couple hundred or a couple thousand, it's. I'm not gonna sign up with a guy who says there could be extra charges added without knowing what that extra charges could be.
Yeah, of course. Absolutely.
Or not to
Well,
exceed.
Like I said, when I fixed that stair, I ended up, it was supposed to be 3 or 4 pieces of wood. It ended up being 10.
That's how these things
It
go.
doubled. Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying, unfortunately, but in good conscience, I couldn't have just left it and just replaced what I wanted because it would have been unsafe, of course.
But
So-
if you go back to these guys, they will give you
Yeah, absolutely, yeah, if I.
they'll give you an all-inclusive, all.
Absolutely, yes.
For sure.
I just wanted them to section it out when I wanted them to bid for the playground separate from the repairs on the deck. And that's where the confusion probably came from. Yeah, so I just wanted to make sure it was separate so you guys could make a decision because.
Okay, so I will make a motion to table this until next month for further information needed from Jeff.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Comment to be made afterwards that technically, you know, the component expenses we have for serve, the playground and decking is considered a general component at this point, so the general part of it. And there's not a whole lot of money there. We're going to use up most of it in this one pass. So I just want to let you know that.
Well,
That's a good point. Can we afford 2,500 to fix a
We
playground?
can, but there's not much reserve in that particular component because it's kind of a general catch-all. So it's next year's budget will have a specific component for the decking and roads.
Yeah,
Well,
this is a long-term problem,
Yes.
as
Well,
we've talked about.
the question is, how much do we currently have?
I wish I could answer that exactly, but in the state of things, which is in my next report we'll talk
Okay.
about, I'll explain.
Okay, well,
Okay.
hopefully we'll have that
Yep.
information next time.
So may I ask, just a reference point.
Thank you, JR.
In Encore, if we have an issue come up between meetings, we can hold a email ballot, and as long as it's 100% for it, we can then pass it, go ahead and do the work and ratify that at the following meeting.
we can't do that unless there's a massive emergency. I'm not even sure how Encore can do that, to be completely honest with you. But without getting into that conversation, we can't.
It's not always a-
I'm curious. about how we should
It's
dig into that a little bit.
It's difficult running an HOA by email. So,
But we can always call a special meeting
No, always
if
call a
we
special-
need to, because I mean, that is a safety hazard. I
You could always
mean,
just call a special meeting, 48 hours,
Right.
right? And, you know, if it was an emergency situation, yes, we could take care of it via phone, Zoom, email.
Or we could just bring this back up and just say, okay, we've got further information. We have a special meeting just to discuss the deck.
We actually can take a vote by email as long as it's in a single item and it's been already discussed in the previous meeting.
I'm okay with doing that. This worries me.
Oh, there's a liability.
Oh,
And the president.
now, what do we have next? I have laptops, Samsung tablets, iPads needed for staff, discussion needed.
I'm sorry, did
La,
we
la, la,
skip,
la, 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 la.
What did I skip?
are we tabling with the Encore
Oh, I'm
violations?
sorry, we just talked about Encore, I passed it, I apologize, let me back up. Encore violations and inspections, discussion needed to determine HOA should be covering within Encore's gates. So John has talked to me about this, basically Encore hasn't had any inspections or violations in several years, at least not from the master staff. So the idea is, and I'm in agreement with John, I think we should be doing violations within Encore, and we should be doing inspections. Without getting into the story and reasons to why we weren't, and it wasn't part of the contract, and yada, yada, they do pay for the master, and no one's inspecting that the properties are up to par. And considering we have kind of a new start on the HOA, kind of a fresh start on management, I think we should be doing violations. My only concern, which I've stated in email and talked to John about, is if Rosetta's doing violations on property and we're doing violations on property, we're going to have some very confused residents at Encore and potentially some very frustrated residents. So if we are to do this, we need to know exactly what Rosetta needs for violation checks that are stringent in Encore. I still believe it's better to have one HOA doing violations, whether that's us or Rosetta. If you have a more stringent property, I have to see them and see what is, what stiffens up that law.
Also with the income tracking portion of it, where the fines, where they both are doing it accidentally, otherwise the fines go to your HOA or the master HOA.
Yeah.
And then if Rosetta is doing any type of filing, how do you track it to get payment? Because we don't typically, have a monthly bill with them or anything like that. So it gets confusing for sure.
So I'm for the HOA doing it. I think we should do it, but I think we need to work with your HOA and find out attend the next meeting and find out exactly what the right process is to.
Or at least their board.
But they're,
Right.
well, that's, I say.
Their board
meeting too, so.
should make a
Basically, our
decision.
rules are just very general. The concept makes sense. The application of it is difficult. But basically what it is that we follow all of the master HOA's rules, unless ours are more stringent. And there are a couple of them that are more stringent related to things like landscaping and a few other items.
Federal, city, state, same thing.
Yeah.
It's always, you can make it more stringent, but you have to follow the things that are broken.
And if it's a manageable stringent, I presume it is.
Sure.
Then, just
We
make
just
sure we
have
get a copy
to,
of it, make sure the CAM knows about it.
I agree. I just think it should be us.
So the action
agree.
item for this, are do we have one?
let's say you're just stating a procedural issue that has to be straightened out in the next.
I
few
say
months.
there's no motion here, but it's
No.
good. I want to talk about it with the board, see that everyone's kind of on the same page, and then John and I will work at actually getting it resolved on his board. There's no point in us making a motion now that we don't have the full answer for it. Maybe his board says they don't want to. I'm not.
So basically a follow up with
Yeah.
Right.
the Encore.
Encore's board,
Ongoing issue.
I'm good.
it's into old business for next.
New business, old business, and ongoing.
Which I've done all types of
Don't
this.
forget the never ending.
Sort of like-
The never ending business too.
It's sort of like chronic and non-chronic. It's a chronic issue.
All right, we'll move on. I have laptops, Samsung tablets, iPads needed for staff. Did I miss something again?
No, I'm waiting for an explanation about this one.
Oh, well, this is easy. See, this is my computer. You see, that's my computer.
Yeah,
So we need a couple things. Hey, James has nothing to work on. We're gonna give him this nice great app that he can't use. He needs something to access the internet. I printed out all this stuff for you guys and got it ready.
No,
Yeah, no, that doesn't.
I totally works on this.
Yeah,
I
but
was
you don't
gonna
work on
say.
it. No, plus we need, in the field, we need something with keyboards, guys.
But we asked prior to even moving forward on this changeover, was there going to be any requirements for equipment? At like,
Major, like you asked about computers and Pretty sure I got everything.
Well, you're
You're
saying
saying
our
because I'm missing
laptop.
laptops and iPads, well, we don't have it. What do you want me to do?
The argument is, of course, it's an
We don't have
unexpected
it.
expense again. So
Yeah.
in the state of things, the way I'm looking at it, which I'll give you a better report since mine's at the end here, I'm reluctant to spend any money at the moment. The other thing is that we're close to the end of the year. Maybe built into the new budget for new devices, but do you have an estimate of how much we expect? I can guess, but I'm asking you to tell the group what you expect to spend.
Everything, here, exactly what I have here. Right, I'm looking at another $1,500 to $2,000 in iPads, and I'm looking at $600, $700 for this. Short of that, and look, if you have to answer, do we absolutely need this stuff? No. If we don't do it, we have a very high potential of having a failure.
Well,
And that seems to be, that would be, is required.
Well,
Since the migration is our number one
So,
issue, right?
I can understand maybe the iPads using something to maybe do the inspections and because I can't pick it up.
I trimmed it down for a couple of reasons. Sean said he mentioned you might have some equipment,
I do, and I can probably donate a few things, but
but even if it wasn't donation, pay for it.
no, I wouldn't do that. That's not the point. If I have equipment, it's because I can't do anything with it. It's not because I'm not selling it. So I must have, but laptops are a little harder to come by than they are iPads. I have a few iPads and so forth as well. But the reality to me, what I was getting at this is that we're currently functioning with an app-based system now. The only one that's really it affects would be JR, which I completely get, right? So we're there. I can certainly facilitate that temporarily.
So do you have at least two?
One,
One,
for sure.
Okay. And that might be fine, because really the iPad, at least, especially to get started, and through the remainder, the iPad that I see really being in use would be for issues.
Okay.
The only problem is that a Wi-Fi and LTE iPad. Up to an LTE service, but that's gonna be next thing we have to do, or get a hotspot.
So what about the possibility that we could, perhaps go somewhere like Best Buy, get the minimum items that we needed and then lease it for a couple of years, spread the cost over a couple of years while we're catching up.
Apple has a lease program as well that you could do and spread it over a 3-year program and then have upgrades automatically each year if you wanted to do that route. And that's certainly something to consider. I do that with my business because then I get a new computer every year and I don't have to worry about replacing my equipment. So I wouldn't have an issue with that. I guess that first of all, new equipment has to be built into the reserve to a certain extent because we have to have it unless we're leasing it, then it doesn't. So that's another option for leasing. So that's a good suggestion from John's side. I understand the necessity of it. I'm a techie. I like equipment. I like things done, nice and clean. And that's the way I am. So I completely get it. I'm just trying to avoid spending another $5 or $6 grand. If we have to, we have to. But
27.
But the lease would spread it out, even if we did it for 2 years. It would get us past this period we're going through now.
well, I mean, how much are they usually leasing per month?
depends on the cost of the devices. Let's say you spend $6,000, it's probably $300 to $400 for a lease to buy new equipment from Apple and have it replaced every year or so. 18 months when you can replace it each time. So I've got 2 laptops in my home that are leased and cost is $340, but my laptop is a $6,000 laptop.
Yeah,
Might be more
Yeah.
a way to go about it.
Well, it's not like we're,
I pulled this pricing off of basic one yoga, Lenovo from Best Buy or Amazon to, or even Samsung.
I'd like
so
to,
Did you have something that you wanted to say? Okay, well, go for it.
Is your proposal to buy only the person or persons, I can't really hear much back here, who does not have a computer at home person with a laptop and or desktop. Who's in charge of recovering said computer when the person leaves, damages to computer, updating computer, backup computer, overall tracking of this device? Computers are really expensive.
So to answer that, the first answer is it's not for stuff at home, it's for use here. So it never leaves the property. So the tablets are for use here for our 3 employees to be able to get into AppFolio and properly enter data. To be able to pull,
You're talking about the office.
I'm talking about the office employees, right?
Okay.
And for being able to do violations in the field. Now, as far as maintenance and warranty, I personally don't put warranties on stuff. That's why I'm talking about 3 devices for $2 grand and not 3 devices for $8 grand. They break, you replace them.
The Apple lease covers warranty.
Apple lease covers. Great.
Somebody asked if they were unable to hear the question or statement completely.
Heather's question?
Yes.
Yeah, why didn't you just say that's?
We have them. I need a Heather, we have 3. I need them mobile. He has nothing, not a desktop or a laptop. If he's at the pool, he can't be at his desktop typing up an order.
For everyone that's online, and the argument for these devices are, if you're out in the field and you need to take a picture and put it into a violation database, you pick up your iPad, you take the picture, you put the data in, you walk away. The other way would be taking pictures, uploading it to the computer. They're going to get lost in this traffic. It's easier to get the thing done while you're standing there and can get the whole thing concisely done. It makes some sense to do that.
Yeah.
It's just another expense that we have to consider. The lease is the best option for the budget. There's no question about that. Apple's protection is Apple Care while you're leasing. No matter how long you lease, you still get Apple Care. It covers everything besides you dropping a hammer on it. Okay, so other than that, it covers everything else. So the theft, all of it. So it's a great option. I would prefer to do that than buy outright.
Well, I think that's a good compromise to get the equipment that we need at a reasonable price and with some insurance,
Well, and my thing, again, is we don't have the money to buy something now.
I have a few questions. Where is it? How do we not? I know what we're going through, but I also know what we're saving. Just past month, we saved 25. So
We saved with,
we didn't pay Heather.
No,
but we spent the money elsewhere.
Where?
hold on a second.
Are the door locks done?
No,
What is the need to spend more money on that?
no, everything's actually purchased.
Can
You
I,
might walk them toward the aisle so that people online can hear you. It's really important.
No.
You're in the corner over there.
Jennifer's getting people online saying they can't hear you, Heather.
so
I guess, and here's the problem. The finances are in disarray right now, and they need to be better. But again, Kathy, these next 2 budget items, if we don't do it, I don't have a solution for doing this migration. And I understand, the company's running the red. I don't have an answer. I just know that if we don't do
okay, let me fully
it,
explain.
we're stuck with it.
The part of it is that there's, real funds and accessible funds. And what I mean by that is that we have, right now, according to the report that I received last night, which was a whole different picture on the way that the dues is coming in, because we've never seen what the liability was for the prepaid assessments. We have $111,000 in prepaid assessments. Okay, they're to carry us to the end of the year. Our bank account has $80,000 in it. So that means that I'm already overspent on the prepaid assessments before I even talk about liabilities we're spending from here to the end of the year. And so whatever's outstanding for collections has got to carry us to the end of the year. Because I've not had a good depiction of that, because of associate not able to report it to us correctly, I don't have my finger on it yet because I still have to run the numbers. But right now it doesn't look very positive. In addition to that, we transferred money to the service accounts to try to get those started on their own incomes. But for the last 3 months, we've transferred nothing into them. That money is still owed to the service accounts. So that's another $45,000. So we can save $2,500 by not having one, but we just spent it I've spent money out of pocket in the area of about $6,000 for this transition that I need to get reimbursed for. That has to come out of that $25,000 you just spent.
No, I know.
So the numbers aren't as bleak. We're still not in the red, but we're not flush to start adding more expense. Remember, the budget was designed to have a 10% contingency so we don't get taxed.
Mhm.
If you spend more than 10% of the budget in things that weren't banked for, we're overspent.
So the question still remains, what do we want to do with this next two budget? I can't, it's great, but I can't paint a case any different. Are there any suggestions? I get any real problems. One of the real problems are we don't have anything to get people into the field to do. He can't access that fully on the field, so he's not going to be able to put in data there. He can't even print that. If we're in the process of hiring a candidate, we have no way of doing violations. That's the first problem. Second problem is we do not have a good storage solution, and I will show you that for you why once we get past the iPad tablet issue. And we can make a decision on that.
So I spent my career working with small businesses. And I view us like a small business that's in a startup phase here. And we're inheriting some stuff, a whole bunch of stuff that's support stuff. But basically, we need to start with the core of things that are operational to make us work. One of the ways that we do that is we come up with integrated pieces, coordinate with everything we've got at the best price possible, with a view that perhaps in 3 years we may upgrade or add other things. But the way you do is you spread it out over time. You have a set amount of money that go into business. You got $10,000, and all of a sudden you got to spend $25,000 on equipment. So you finance it by leasing it or borrowing the money, and I think we can lease it easier than we can get a loan for it. And then you spread that over 3 years, and it moves you out, with exceptions of 1 or 2 things you may need to buy in the interim, till you get out to a time where you supposedly have good solid cash flow and you have control of your finances. And that's what I recommend that we do here, that we get the equipment that we need to make it operational and functional. And no more, but no less. And then do something like leasing it so we can spread it out over the time rather than have this big chunk fall out at a time when we're really tight. And then over the next couple of 3 years, work it out. If we decide the equipment fails, you can get out of the lease. You can get out of the lease. You can work your way out of these leases by returning the equipment, or if it fails, they'll fix it for you. It's Apple Care.
Sacks it down and knowledge you out of the lease, but you can pay it off.
Right. So there are options that make it greater for us to go with a payout over time than to try and deal with it currently.
I was curious about if you guys can go with tablets.
You gotta speak up.
Speak up so that they
My
can hear.
question is, for this to really be optimal in the field, we have to go with something that has LTE or cellular, because people aren't just gonna let you connect to their home Wi-Fi. So that's gonna be more expensive, and it's gonna incur monthly costs over time for each line. I just didn't know, I didn't hear that being brought up.
I briefly brought it up to Sean, but yeah, you're right. There's going to be some monthly occurrence. Almost everything that I touch ends up having some sort of monthly occurrence, small, minor, but.
Okay. And for the other thing, so you can buy Bluetooth keyboards and tablets, so essentially, I mean, that in my opinion, will eliminate the need for a laptop, because you get Bluetooth case.
The reason I want one laptop primarily is for meetings here and running Zoom. Like right now, I got to bring 2 laptops to get this job done. That's the only reason. One that could be pooled amongst the 3 employees when a laptop's needed. But you're right, the tablet's in the field with the protective and flip top Bluetooth. That's my thought process.
Oh, I'm supposed.
Okay, I've never done a lease through Best Buy. I don't know how that works.
I just picked them. There's equipment's on sale. I just get an email that says, through this weekend.
I've never
But
leased
they're-
to Best Buy either, so I don't like this.
So Best Buy has Apple products as well as DOS products. I presume that you guys will figure out which of those systems are going to be the best for us. But I don't advocate Best Buy over Apple. I've got My own Apple.
My
equipment and Apple
only
devices.
question there is, I don't know of any of these companies that do leases directly. So we're
What
saying you don't
happens
want to
is
purchase, I don't know how to. go
Best Buy
forward.
usually does theirs through another company. So, well, Citibank was one of them.
Also, we talked about Synology, which is their finance company for all their credit cards and leases. But I've never done a lease. I mean, I've purchased $100,000 of equipment in the last 2 months. I've never done a lease through Best Buy or.
That's okay. I just picked a name, a big enough company that can have the equipment that we needed, and a big enough company to provide financing.
You technically don't lease from Best Buy. They have a credit card that you can do,
Right.
but you initially purchase things from there, like cell phones with a lease through the carrier.
It's yours.
Yeah, that's okay. I'm just, it's a for instance, you know.
It's just, it's just.
I could have said anything, you know.
No, but
Over
it's a real
every
question because I'm trying to formulate what we're doing here. Because if I'm pricing out this hardware at roughly $2,000, right? Saying we don't have it, so we're saying lease it now, so we can't lease it, we put it on a credit card and make monthly payments. So am I hearing I should be going to Best Buy and trying to get a credit card?
For not to do that, I still think that the lease option is a better idea because of the warranty and replacement every so often without having to worry about anything. If you want to,
Can we ask for a donation for an iPad?
Sure. Anyone have iPads we could have with LTE?
I don't have one without LT. I would donate one to you in a heartbeat, but I don't.
What about surfaces?
Or Surfaces with LTE? My favorite.
Function very similarly in there.
I was focusing on the financing part.
No, I
Yeah,
get you. I'm
so-
asking very specifically because I don't know how to go on.
Well, I can certainly do the lease for Apple. We can certainly talk about applying for a credit card. There's a whole snafu about, applying for loans even in our charter. So typically anything we do requires someone's personal endorsement on it for the security of the account.
But the next, agree with the lease option directly through Apple would be a good, however it does in their name, or it would be through the HOA.
It wouldn't be through the HOA. It still has to be
Yeah,
guaranteed for by some individual, a board member, a person who's going to put their name on the account.
Well, what we would do as an HOA, we would indemnify the person, just making that guarantee.
How can you indemnify someone who's liable for something you don't do?
What?
If it doesn't get paid, the person who's got their social security number on is liable.
They are liable, but what happens is we would then be saying that we would step in and take over that liability. They require somebody to sign on as a human being. It's very common in business that certain officers, directors, and people who are running the business periodically have to make personal guarantees. And it's normal for the companies to step in and make an indemnification that says, if you have a loss related to this, we will reimburse you for that loss. So
I understand, but it's still, if something goes wrong, the person with the social security number has to deal with it. Doesn't matter whether you indemnify it or not, that's just a
So
verbal handshake.
what is your option? If you don't want to spend the money,
I'm
you don't
just
want to
telling
go
you
to
the
the lease
facts.
because we don't
I'm
want
just stating the facts. I have put my name on many things in my life, and my past HOA included, and got burnt with it.
there's no answer then. So we just don't buy the equipment and we just shut down and wait until we come up with some more money.
That's not the argument, John.
That is the argument.
No.
You're saying we can't spend the money.
I'm
He
saying
says we need the
shouldn't.
money.
I didn't say we can't. I said we probably shouldn't.
They said exactly, if owners, voters, HOA, people change, it would be an issue.
But close the account, but yeah.
Can't close the account if you owe something, on it, someone has to pay it.
Okay, what are our terms, guys? Let's get a 2-year payoff plan.
I'm only giving the options. I don't, the reality is if you vote for the equipment, we'll find a way to spend money. But again, even with the door openers, we haven't purchased the door openers at this point. There's still liability for that. We have the door openers, but we haven't purchased them, so we still have to pay for those. There's things that were still outstanding, and it's going to snowball if we're not careful. And it's my job to point them out. Vote as you will, but I'm just pointing them out.
Without a vote yet. Sorry, let me ask, because you're in charge of the finances. What should we do? We need to spend money, we can't be.
I'm more apt to do a lease than it doesn't matter, lease or financing is fine. I was giving the downside of the lease and financing. It's completely fine. I had not originally anticipated that we would need 3 iPads.
Well, we don't need 3. Oh, if we get 1 right now, we're stepping in the right direction. That's what I'm saying. I put a budget here of $1,500 to $2,000 for iPads and one laptop. I would like to at least have a plan in the near future to stop having to bring all my equipment here to get a job done. That's why I want a laptop, because they can't print. I believe JR could be far more effective if he has a laptop. But I could have him for the first 2 or 3 months sharing the computer between Jennifer and whoever Cam's going to be. So we could X that and just be in an uncomfortable situation. But we definitely need an iPad for violations. I don't see a way around it.
They asked, can it be a Wi-Fi iPad since we have Wi-Fi at our amenities?
Yes and no. I mean, yes, for something like JR, but for violations, no. We don't have Wi-Fi across the board. It would need to be something else. Or,
Well, there's privacy issues too, privacy issues.
I'm sorry.
So, I mean, can we look
Wi-Fi.
into a mobile hotspot? Is that the recommendation? I mean, that would be easier to carry around and for different people to use.
A single hotspot instead of having the LTE.
Well, isn't that one? Oh, I guess that depends.
You could tether your phone.
it's true if said employee's carrier allows it,
So our employees are going to have a telephone.
that allows for tethering. I don't know, but you know, the problem is we're going that, okay, who we hire, by the way, part of you need to have a cell phone, it's not spot tether.
No, that I'm not specifically stating that. I'm just saying it's very
I know.
uncommon today. It's very uncommon. That's what I meant.
Well, like Verizon, for instance, if you don't pay for the tethering service, you could activate on your phone.
Can I ask
So-
Adam this question? I'm assuming JR has a cell phone, but assumption confirmed, and you may have already talked to him. Can he not use his personal cell phone? Is he opposed to that? I don't want to talk to you about it in the third person like you're not here.
I've never talked to him about it, but my concern, well, first of all, JR, can you use your personal cell phone for both email and accessing it? That's the only thing you get. I figured that must be, my problem with JR is he can't get work done like this. And I truly fear Appfolio Cellular is great for the resident app, for the manager app. It's not that hot, not at all day. You can't- I don't want to be entering all this information on my device.
Well, technically, I think this goes into some legal issues, but you're not supposed to do that. Well, I know as a contractor,
you're
they're
not.
not allowed to do that. You're not allowed to make your employee use their personal.
No, you're not allowed to force them to do it. That's correct. It can't be a requirement for the job.
Yes, so I think as a, temporary situation, I understand, but I'm opposed to that being the long-term. We have to get equipment that is.
It's not really the focus of why I think we need some of this equipment. The focus is more the functionality than the chemical.
What's the minimum equipment that you want to buy for this purpose? And iPad,
Yeah, get one iPad with LTE.
So minimum expense about
Okay.
$50 a month.
We'll continue with my laptop and JR, when you need something, I don't know, I might be able to set up a desktop for you, maybe in a storage shed or something, at least give you something that.
I can donate a laptop or two that's not a problem for me. I've got 4 of them stacked next to my desk right now that aren't doing anything.
I got a few too, but I'm hoping yours are in better condition.
He said, I can donate an iPad, it just won't be LTE.
Yeah, I can too. And it won't be
I
LTE.
have one too.
So for the minimum, hopefully someone can donate a laptop and then maybe we can purchase or lease the iPad.
Would you like me to let me throw this out there? I can get this particulars on the lease for Friday morning. I mean, I have the contracts. I can download it from the developer site and look and see what it costs to get the 2 devices, or 3 devices.
And if it's a lease, I'll sign on the lease. I don't care.
That's not that's not, I'm not opposed to signing it. I'm just telling you what happened in the past with me. So that's why I was.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Someone has to put their personal social security.
You could always do Best Buy Open Box, which is cheaper than leasing it in its own.
That is usually where I go.
Right, but then it's a purchase.
That's-
No warranties usually, or the warranties are limited.
Okay,
Okay. I'm discussing.
A motion to table this until we get more information, a definitive explanation of what each piece of equipment is needed for, how much it would cost to buy versus how much it costs to lease. And then we can call a special meeting in 2 weeks to review and
Or faster. And update it by next week if you want to set a meeting next week.
And then hopefully the wood folks will have an answer for you too, right? Right, so we could handle both of those issues in a special meeting.
I
Okay.
second.
All right.
all those in favor?
I
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carried.
They said it was a purchase, but it's lesser over time.
There was a purchase, but that's which one?
I guess the open.
Oh, yeah,
box.
it's a purchase. but it's less. That's-
Right.
I always, I agree. I always say that.
Which is maybe what we do to bridge the gap till we're in a better financial.
Well, what
situation.
I'll do what I do here. I'll just get the exact, and we'll have a special meeting.
Yeah. I mean, I'm looking on, it. If an employee needs, remember, they're employees of the association. If they need material to do something,
So.
it's just a cost of doing business. It's my philosophy, and we'll figure it out.
let's press down.
Okay, folks, network attached storage device, digitally housing our files. I have this marked down at $600 to $700.
I think this is non-negotiable.
I think this is non-negotiable too.
This is a legal issue. You have to have something to get people onto so that they want to look at records.
We have to have it, exactly. We have to have a place to store all our digital files. I've been needing to do this one for over a year now. The timing's just never been as a necessity as it is now. As you saw that, were you able to download that 12 gig dump from? So, you know, we have some files. This proposal is for a device that sits here in the network rack, mirrors 2 drives, and it, I'm sorry, allows access here from the office to manage all the files locally, and then allows all the residents to have access to what is public versus what is office. Now, Appfolio does have a file function. It's not good for a whole lot of reasons. They don't have support any subfolder structures. So if you imagine the way you see things in Town Square, okay, when you look at, if you were to look at all of our folder structures uploaded through Appfolio, you're going to see it as a huge file dump. You see all these files under one drive. Kind of a mess. The management of policies of who has access to what is not great. They're really not made to be file storage systems, so I don't want to pretend that they are. That's the proposal. And what I wanted to show everyone, if you look up on the screen here, this is a resident login. So when a resident logins, this is going to be kind of the panel you see. I have dummy information, but over here, right on the right-hand side, you have HOA document storage access. Literally just a link that they click on. And it'll give you a full dump access that everyone's kind of familiar with how it looks. Choose a folder, open it up, you can download your file. Very simple and intuitive. That's why I pushed for this. Question.
Can you control access based on user identity?
Can I control access?
So residents get assigned that identity, they have access to certain data, board members get assigned that
Yeah.
have certain data,
I mean,
management.
Just standard access control, yes,
Okay.
100%. That's part of the issue I have in Appfolio is you can share out documents to all, but you can only do it at a document level, not the folder level. So if you have one folder They don't allow subfolders, so you have to have one directory, and then you have to individually share out every folder in that directory. And if there's a change or a revision, you have to delete the old, upload the new, and then remember to share the new. It's not a very intuitive system. Don't be it.
Are you intending to use Synology as your platform?
That's what I have set here in motion as an example, using my.
No comment?
Oh, yeah.
Go ahead.
So since we're gonna house sensitive information on the snaps, the authentication, do we have options for single sign-on, two-factor authentication? Okay.
Synology.
I have it all. Yeah, two-factor authentication, it's enabled. The only public access is like I'm showing you right here. Public access through the link to read-only directory. Anything behind it, which is the rest of that, maybe the data dump, just because it's not prevalent until you move it over. Or maybe files Jennifer's working on in the office is behind the public under a separate authentication.
The data dump is a good majority of it is from Town
I
Square.
saw it, I couldn't download it, but yeah.
So we want to stay on topic. This, we all agree that this is necessary.
I agree that it's necessary. I think it's this is a good way of going.
Thinks we should not spend $700 on file storage. This is a one-time expense. Is there a monthly expense, annual?
This is a one-time expense. Since we're so tight on cash rate, there is, I want to set that device up to a backblaze data dump. This way we could have backups off-site. Building burns down, we lose all of that. That being said, backblaze for this amount of data is probably $10 a month or less.
I was gonna say, you also have a offline backup
We,
cost here.
we could just pass it for now. We don't even have it set up. I could revisit that in 6 months or a year. Trust me, I'm not gonna forget that.
Well, I agree with this. I mean, I would make a motion that we approve this expense.
Seconded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion, any opposed? Motion carries. Okay.
Question technically, it's to be housed where?
The data,
You've been asked.
okay. New cam hire, Betty. I'm not gonna butcher her last.
John.
Was it?
John.
Shan. How do we feel about hiring her? My
Did
thoughts are-
anybody get reference, go call for references?
So nothing's really been done since the.
I mean, you followed up with her or where we at?
She's waiting.
She's waiting. She's waiting for tonight's meeting, I know that much. You didn't get a chance to.
We make a motion. I mean, motion, we can do it conditional. Saying, do we want to hire based on somebody getting in touch with some of the references? I can do that next week. I can't do it.
Did she supply the references?
There is none on a resume.
No?
Yeah, there's not a reference list or a
Well-
phone list, so.
No.
I'm sure we can call and get some. Folks, as hard as we don't have cash, we don't have CAM, and we're in the middle of training, that's just gonna come to. I'm looking for a hire today, an offer tomorrow, and a start on next Wednesday. It's just what makes sense, but
Well,
There was nothing about her interview that set off red bells and whistles for me. Did you see something during the interview process that bothered you?
Yes, I felt that she didn't really answer our questions. Any of the questions that were asked, she went around them. She never directly answered the question. She also was very soft-spoken, which I'm a little concerned with The fact that, you know, if our residents come in here and are very hot or whatever, I don't think that that is a fit. But I was really very concerned with the fact that she did not answer our questions directly.
My overview is, and I say this as politely as I can, we don't have people hammering at our door, I realize that. But
But the other, that's the other thing is
I understand.
the recs were closed. You closed the recs. You closed the job rec.
Yeah, close them. It's fine.
Did they explain?
So which is, makes a decision easier to think about.
There's just a risk with that.
If it were me and I was interviewing for a position at my place of work or for my company, she would not be keeping an offer. She seems passive. This is a customer service oriented job, and that's just my overview. Do I think she has the skill set to pull off some of the technical things? Probably. Do I think she has the one thing that we really wanted here was a really outgoing customer service person? Maybe not. We do have, with that being said, we have a buffer, which is Jennifer, who is excellent in customer service and to handle that part of it. If that's something to think about. So that's my overview. If I had to give you a score, she's a 6 on a scale of 10. She's not an 8. She's not an 9.
Yeah, I'll be completely honest. Patty is not my first choice. She's my own choice. I do agree she's soft spoken. I am a little worried she might get bulldozed here. But Jennifer's here, James is here, maybe not.
No pressure, Jennifer.
But when I asked myself, and actually Mark had mentioned this to me a while back, do I think she's capable of doing the job? I do think she's capable of doing the job.
So is there a probation period here?
It has to be.
We can easily put in a 90-day probation period. So I was reading on this
So
online.
if red flags come up or there's a problem.
Sure, I see no problem putting it in. I'm just gonna speak freely. I don't see it being effective at all. So we're fire at will state.
But I mean, it gives her a contingency.
But it gives a good contingency
Precedence.
that this is a precedence, there's a 90-day probation period, and there's gonna be a review.
Guys, listen, we'll tell you how it came out.
And
That's what,
can you ask for references when you speak to her? Say, by the way, would you have a reference that you could give to us?
of course.
That way, I think we're covering the bases, reducing risk, but still moving forward.
Yeah, I agree with the probational period. I would insist that we do a background check at least. That's clean and we're going through the
Right, that's a good
probation
one.
period. I think that's fine. Got references. I think we're on the clear since this is what, but I would not hire without a clean background check.
She's a can, so she had to go through the background check to get a license, right?
Oh, well,
We'll
how
still-
long
we'll
is,
still
but she's
do
not
that.
current. Is she current?
She's current,
Okay.
2021.
Well, yeah, I think she got it when she came down here. So it's relatively.
Okay, so current and so they have to have that. Okay. Well,
With those risks acknowledged, I think that's the way, I would feel probation, move forward. If the background check's good, ask for some references. Early next week, I can make some phone calls. Always address anything that pops up.
Okay, do we want to, what do we want the offer?
Do we want to, is that
85?
talked out and open here, or is that?
We can actually, the limitations we're talking about salaries and benefits have been removed from the 2018 version of the chapters, 2021 chapter 17 of the state charter stuff. So we can talk about salary, we can talk about benefits, we can talk about.
But we don't have benefits. She's coming from quote unquote 97K with benefits. She had mentioned to me 85 would be acceptable. I am in agreement with that figure. As we're doing a probation period, we could maybe save a little money. Offer 80, 85 after probation with the review.
You offer. I think same in probation, just if it's not working out, it's not working out. So that's my feeling.
We originally talked about offering a little less to see if she'll counter offer, come up on it, rather than give her the higher offer and telling you that's all we can afford, well, we're willing to give out. Either way you want to negotiate that, I'd like the ceiling at the 85 that we talked about at some point, if that's possible.
Yeah, I think it's worth a little bit less, but if I, negotiate it out, I guess, at this point.
So make an offer for it. And you want to second that?
Second.
All those in favor of having Patty Luciano offer for $80,000 a year? Condition. 90-day probation.
But, all right, but what's, I guess here's my question. So you go in and she comes back with a counter offer, you have to come back to the board and ask? Or should we make this appropriate?
Put a ceiling on it.
That's what I'm saying. So, that way you know where the board is comfortable with. That's, I don't want to find you in a particular dollar and cent and then it
Okay,
gives you some room to negotiate.
so starting at 80, and what's the top end that everyone feels comfortable with? Is it 85? Is that the top end, or are we?
I would go
All right, so we're in agreement there, that's great.
that's what's,
Thank you.
okay. Let me make that motion. Motion to hire Patty Luciano for $80,000. Up to a max ceiling of 85, depending on negotiation, with a 90-day probation. All right, second. All those in favor? All right. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, last but not least, portfolio migration status, resident. I saw I sent you some more stuff today. that I
Okay,
got.
so let me
Don't
tell
know
you,
how helpful.
we were effective in getting all the accounts set up and most of the basic structure done in that folio without much difficulty. We've run into a couple different obstacles when it comes to getting the account balances from associate. Last night, we received our first report that had actually both credits, in other words, prepayments and delinquencies all in one report. The delta on that was a lot higher than our last financial report. We showed $15,000 on our last our report for delinquencies and $20,000 on prepaids.
I got 40,000.
$40,000 on the report if you pull it on Town Square, but what they reported on our actual financial report was $15,000. That set a red flag as soon as I saw it because they offset that number with $11,000 in doubtful accounts. So their top line on that report says that we have basically delinquencies of $3,200 and change. Very misleading. And when you run the report in Town Square, which it only has delinquencies, not prepaids, it comes out to be $38,974.60, which is the number that I saw as well. So on this report, it came out to be $38,602 with $111,000 in prepaids. The numbers are, and the explanation is in the last 30 days, the quarterlies are starting to come in, and I'm like, well, I looked at the last 30 days and they don't balance according to what you said. So Annette told me I'll look into it and get back to you. So the reliability of the actual data is sketchy at best at the moment.
Suspect.
So it's holding up us getting started. However, if I went with the balances that I received as the 28th and started from that point, we obviously can adjust them at some point. Here's the new problem. Trying to separate revenue, they have no records that you can do unless you pull each individual account up about how the money was applied. I don't know whether it went to a late fee. I don't know whether it goes to a service area or to the master. So all the prepaids are just in one big lump sum. So I won't even know how to apply them because the line items don't exist before that. So it's a lot of handwork to straighten this out. And it's not impossible. They sent me 1,434 accounts. We have 1,238 active accounts at any given moment, never anymore. So that means I've got another 200 accounts in there that are inactive that have to be waded through. Well, I can certainly just not even bother with those and take them out, but there's a huge amount of work to get this to happen. Everything else in the system, I'm pretty well comfortable with what we've done and how it's been set up and so forth and moving forward. So my thoughts were get the balances in, start charging people and tell them that, within 60 days, the accounts will be sorted out, letting them know that we're trying to get the data in correctly. We have to tell them something. It's going to happen whether we like it or not come the first. We've told them to turn everything off on the first. We'll balance transfer the amounts out of their bank accounts, which I had access to all the bank accounts 3 days ago, and I only have access to 4 accounts. So they've switched off some of the usage already before I was able to get anything out of them. So that's another obstacle that I'm going to have to deal with in that. Annette has inherited a mess. She's the new person in charge. Richard is gone. People are leaving Associate for all the obvious reasons. I don't know whether they've been let go or if they just jumped ship. But the problem is we're dealing with a whole new regime of people on top of that. So yeah, the challenge is large, but it's doable. I could, like I said, that format I got in last night, I could import. Not a problem. I can get that to happen. It'll be a rough jumping off point and we'll have to clean it up, just like it happened when we switched out of Rosetta and it took us a while to clean up. If we give a period where we're not going to do fining, which we discussed anyway, and we tell people that the transition is still being clean, and they know that, then maybe we won't have such a big pushback when it happens.
So I think that's only reasonable, right? If the accounting isn't flowing, you can't charge penalties.
So how is the accounting firm helping you with this?
Accounting firm isn't doing anything yet because I just got the data last night. I haven't discussed it with them.
So you're the only one that's been making entries to that now?
We're not
You have
making
any
any
backups?
entries. We haven't made any entries. All we've seen is a report on an Excel spreadsheet.
So how did you get what's in there already? I went
The
in
accounts?
There are no finances.
There are no finances in it.
I understand that. I went in just out of curiosity and looked at it yesterday, day before yesterday. And I was able to pull up a listing of our members. And there's a discrepancy between how many I think we've got and what they have listed in there.
There's not. That list was done first. That was the first part of my conversation, that the members' accounts were imported correctly and verified. All that's in there is blank accounts. There's no accounting data whatsoever. Just the name of the homeowner, the actual
I
unit name.
understand that. I just went in and looked to see what was there, and there was just a listing of homeowners.
That's all that's in there.
Okay, and so it says at the bottom of it, how many homeowners are listed there.
Correct.
It's greater than how many homeowners that everybody's been telling us we have.
Homeowners as opposed to units. I'm sure you understand the difference between the two.
Because it before, I guess when we were dealing with Town Square and all that stuff, they only had it per unit, right? Or now we're
We
adding,
imported everyone that was listed in our Excel spreadsheet. And if there were multiple people on one household, they are a person or a homeowner within the system.
okay,
But there
So
are
that's
units that are attached to those individuals that have a relationship to them. In addition to that, the units are not just 1238 because we have accounts for the sub areas as well, including Encore and all the service areas. So if you add those all together, it comes out to be something like 1,819 complete separate accounts that link to just one unit and multiple homeowners. The way it's set up is completely different from Town Square, which had one unit, one homeowner with multiple names attached to that same unit. It's not the same. You have, Heather can have her own login, your husband can have their own login, but you'll look at the same account.
yeah, that makes sense.
So the account's still the unit.
The account is still the unit, except for people who have service areas will have 2 accounts that link to one login. Just keep them running separate. So I'll have a Westlake account and a master account. Whoever's in Sagewood will have a Sagewood account. Encore doesn't have any finances to theirs, so their Encore account is put in so we can prove them.
The individuals may have different accounts, but the unit is
Exactly.
one unit.
Right, it has one name, one unit.
Slow it up, but that's.
Yeah, so it was a lot of work to separate it out that way because it wasn't separated that way before. That's the only thing that's been done besides putting a general ledger and the bank accounts with no balances at this point.
But we don't have a plan to assign finances to those individual units. I mean, what you're saying is you don't know how to break it out from what's a master versus a subunit. That money that gave you, that's the problem you have.
The only plan for that would be do it by hand because there's no way to do it electronically from the data that we've gotten from Associate. So the only thing I can import electronically, which is technically not import, it's to transfer it to a spreadsheet and give it to AppFolio, will be the starting balance as of last night at 7 p.m.
Which we don't know is accurate.
Correct.
So once we know it's accurate, does it have to be, are you saying it has to manually input it at that point, or will we be able to?
It will have to be manually corrected after they import the first balances.
And then, okay, and then we import.
It's gonna have to be manually massaged to figure out, hopefully what it is. Because I mean, what's driving me is, what's the unpaid amount? Is it 11,000? Is it 17? Is it 40,000, 38,600? I mean, that's a big ticket, right? We could buy a few computers with that $36,000, $38,000, 650.
But if the numbers come out the way that the report is, and we're $40,000 in delinquencies and 111, and the delta being 74 and change, right, is actually in liabilities to future dues, including the rest of the year, that's what we have left in the bank, which balances in my mind because we have about $80,000 left in the bank. So that makes some sense. So when you're talking about $40,000 in delinquencies, which is roughly 6% of our income, that's quite a bit.
Right. We talked about it 2 meetings ago, right? That's the number that I'm disturbed about it on several levels, right? I'm disturbed about it from a purely accounting level. I'm also disturbed about it because those are neighbors, not paying their dues. And the way I look at that is someone who doesn't pay their dues is stealing from their neighbor. That's the way I look at it, because you have a responsibility to help pay for this place. And if you don't do it, you're freeloading. It's just like you're socializing with the trees. Right?
What I did try to express to you in an email is that in the interim of the first time I pulled the delinquency report on Town Square to the second time I pulled it, they had done entries when they were told not to that predated the first report, which means they were from the 5th and things. So that means that their posting on their end was behind and they were trying to catch up.
Right.
So are they caught up at this point as of that report? Is that why it took us 2 weeks to get the report? I'm guessing that's the reason. So is it accurate? I don't know, but it seems like it would probably be more accurate than not at this point. That the numbers that were reported at the end of June were pretty tainted by not being caught up.
Does this report fix the liabilities issue? Because that's the one thing we have no view.
This report does include all prepaids. Like I said, there's $111,000 in prepaids on this report.
You just don't know what accounts they go to. To split them up.
How it's distributed. Right.
Or if it's been distributed for that matter, because then I got another report saying this is what we've done today. And then I'm like, you weren't supposed to be doing anything.
So they did a prepay, you don't know what they prepaid for.
Right, so because the line items that will have to be in the future, we'll have to apply it the way that it rolls down in the future. That's easy enough.
Well, that doesn't say, like, so if we know it's a prepay and it goes to John Doe, then, I mean, it would just come off as billing cycle as well, right? So as John Doe also
Technically,
says,
yes.
it's just gonna start pulling up.
Technically, yes. Yeah. But the end result is if let's say from here to the end of the year, we're only going to collect another $200,000 and we've already got 110 that we've already spent. It gets just like it did last year, it crunches us at the end of the year to figure out where the money's coming from. So that's why we broke it up into 4 payments to hopefully not have that rush at the end of the year. So we do have a quarterly, coming in here shortly. A lot of them are starting to fall in the bank account a little early. Some of them might. I'm hoping, mine's paid already, so I have a credit on mine already. So I know there's others that have to. It just because of this void of the, not knowing exactly. We've always been giving our reports as a full 100% of the income came in, and we're assuming we got 100% of the income, and we've been operating all this time with delinquencies that were larger than we expected to be. even though we're told delinquencies are down, and at one point, I think last year, I think we were working with about a $45,000 delinquency, and they were thrilled to get it down to $40,000 at some point.
Yeah.
So we're carrying it at $40,000. That means technically our contingency, which was only 3% last year, should probably be more like 18% this year with the inflation.
So we've been at 2 hours. Sean, what's your key takeaway from your brief?
Well, action, well, we need like an action item, or what the,
We need to import the data as it is and deal with it.
When do we want to go live with this? Yeah, if I'm,
Data can be imported tomorrow. I'll give it to Brian. I'll take care of it same day. We can go live tomorrow if you want to. But my goal was to do the first, which is Monday.
the first is Monday. I have a question and then I have a reservation. Question is, if I'm John Doe and okay, so I'm gonna be able to look in my account, I'm still gonna see.
You're going to see the balance that you saw in town square.
Because that's the only thing that's gonna cause major panic, right? If I log into an account, I go, whoa, where's my money? That phone's blowing up. What do we do?
They'll have a general balance, opening balance of a credit or a debit, depending on whether they owe us money or we owe them money, so to speak. That's what they'll see. They'll see no history.
Now, I guess, a follow-up question, it's a reservation. Is there a reason we have to go live on this first?
No,
Can we push it a week?
we can.
Reason I say, my reservation, I agree, finance will be in there, numbers will be in there. I do not have violations figured out yet to the T. We saw what we were doing today with ARCs to the T. I know the functionality is there and we're working on it. We have a practice training session with Landon with that folio Friday, and our last one on Monday. I'd really love a week to at least get the processes figured out and then start shooting people in. Otherwise, they're going to be instantly submitting maintenance forms, which our maintenance guy can't even check. And we're going to be sitting in limbo. Well, now they're at least in the process.
You submitted one today. I got a copy of it. So,
I'm just saying, I need a little bit of time to work out the actual how-to process, which again, also coincided with, we don't have data storage on here yet, so we're not going to have that. I order equipment, get it set up.
Let me go back to the part of that that you probably should know. The law requires us to have the accessibility of documents, and if they request them, we have 7 days to produce them, no matter which way we produce them, electronically or not. So it gives us a buffer on the electronic part of it, a full week. If you had to, you'd send them a PDF that they're looking for and be done with it. That's completely legal. Having it real time, anytime they want it, is a luxury.
Yeah, there's no requirement to do that.
well, I think the question here is when do we go live?
But my thing is, especially with all the hours of work, I really don't want to go live half-assed.
Got it?
What about the 15th? That gives you a little bit of.
Are you really gonna have time though? I mean, really?
No, like I'm going to, other than, I'm looking at my calendar right now.
Talking about
Other
the
than
technology thing, it's not an easy thing to go through and rename all the documents correctly and make sure they're
No,
organized.
but I'll have it all there so that we could access it and start migrating over. I already have right here a good chunk of it. A lot of that is already in there just for my own keeping, from pulling from town square. So this is going to be our jumping off point for that. So the point is, they'll do all the random stuff that people need. They'll be able to fill out the ARC forms. It's not migrate from this to knowledge.
Well, Before we go live, can we just do like a
Yeah.
review, like or something?
That's all I do, like even the department, that's all I do. I put in the, ARC request, I go through the fields, I fill out the form.
So can we do a soft start on the first, where you import everybody's data and then we go through, maybe Jennifer can go through and spot check, compare town square data to folio data, make sure that people's accounts are
The
reflecting.
accounts are absolutely 100%. They've been validated like 6 times.
Okay.
I mean, accounts, I mean like the amount of money owed.
She's not gonna be able to validate that.
Yes, Dave?
Test this from a homeowner's account, because I'm assuming everybody has admin access, testing it and admin.
No, I have a Sherman Moon account.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I do all day. I make a change, I see how it affects on the homeowner portal, and I flip that.
Just being software development.
Yep.
Yeah.
You gotta test them all, you gotta test them all in.
I actually have both a homeowner and an accounting admin too. So, the accounts are locked in at this point. They're valid. Everything's in there. There's only a couple of corrections that I'll show Jennifer how to make, that she's got some new changes that happened after we imported some phone numbers and so forth.
I have Thursday next week, but I have to work earlier. But I could move my Tuesday. So the point is I could get all next week to make sure we got pencil this done, get it done. So maybe we'll do a special meeting next week, Friday. I know nobody likes Fridays, but at least then we could review all this. See how it's all flowing and functioning.
Okay.
And maybe go live on a Monday.
The thing I was trying to tell you, Mark, is that she can't validate the accounts, amounts. We don't have them anyplace else with this Excel spreadsheet.
That is different.
Well, I think what was the comment?
My question is like, where are people going to be making payments to
Well, that's exactly.
going forward now?
Well,
Because
I'm hoping that they can't right now. And that's it. I totally forgot to talk about that. We need to have a grace period here. I'm thinking
60 days.
60 days, yeah. At least 60 days, there's gonna be a grace period. Doesn't matter which system you're in, but most importantly, I'm hoping that they can't make payments. So when we do say, hey, by the way, here's the email, we're live, go sign up for your account here at AppFolio, they could potentially make.
well, and the reason being is people are already calling and asking me like, okay, we end on the 31st. Where am I making my payment to? Where am I making?
If they
my
have to
payment
make it, pay them, tell them, mail it to the office, we'll post it by hand. But if they want to wait, tell them there'll be an announcement forthcoming.
Right, and that's what I've been trying to say, that, you know, we would make an announcement in the next week or
You
so.
received
but-
my payment in the mail, so. I'm not gonna be late.
I'm just
Who's
one of
gonna
the
come
prepaid.
for that?
Right.
No,
Not to
it is
have
true.
charge.
We do have to do some sort of announcement on this.
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, yeah,
Yeah,
Do we
because I'm
have
getting calls
capabilities to
daily
send out emails?
about it.
Yeah. Sounds good. Well, it's not exactly, Yeah.
So town square is shut down.
No,
No,
we're trying to
I've
get
been
the
doing
payment
training.
process.
And then the other side.
Town Square's still up.
What about people that have
So
credit?
maybe you and I should set that.
Those are the liabilities that are going to transfer over.
But
training session.
So
I
the
I pay for the year, so that's the
So-
liability.
so it's just the
You
people
own the
that
service.
are wanting to pay for.
Well, it's not a question, right? Where am I gonna pay next? The answer is,
Especially
yeah,
since
folio when it's coming.
We haven't been very consistent on some of the stuff lately.
Are
So,
Are ACH payments on the associate going to be shut down as well?
Supposedly.
Requested that a week ago.
We've been fighting it on the phone with the net yesterday for quite some time. Listening to reasons of why she can't, but
We are set up for ACH payments already on the app portal. As soon as we announce that, that information will be given to everyone. So you can sign up to it.
So we need to give them, so the clear answer for her for the time being is that we're going to a folio and there's going to be a 60-day grace period. Is that what
we are going to a folio. There's without a doubt going to be a 60-day grace period on all of the fees.
so again, I go back to my original question. Do we have a way to send emails out to these people about where they are and what to do and all these things we're making decisions about?
Town Square, where we are.
I don't think
Facebook
that would
post.
just confuse them. if we don't.
It's not optional. It's Facebook and Town Square. That's where we reach out.
Until we make the transition, there will be Facebook and app portal.
It's not some big email platform with 2,000.
There could be. I mean, I could do a mail list merge right now if you wanted to.
What?
No, I know. I got those.
Do make a mail list that we can send a message to everybody and it'll go out through my mail servers.
I would, my advice on cleaning up, let's get past, let's get past this and we'll figure out how to communicate. So we want to go
I think
live.
communication is really important. They've already got some
I'm
people
not,
that are
I'm not
anxious.
knocking it, John. I'm trying to figure out.
Entirely agree with you. Yeah.
I'm not saying it's not good. I'm trying to figure out when to do it.
I think you do it for now, telling them that this is the cutoff date. It'll be opened on this date and you stick to it.
So I'll start working on a publication. So we'll do a cutoff date for all associate payments will be on the 1st. The go live date with AppFolio will be on the
Pick a date.
Are we saying 15th or?
I would say the 15th.
Yeah, I think if you're.
For that, we need
earlier,
to spot
15th.
check it and make sure that it's working
Right.
flawlessly.
go live date will be the 15th. And we will send out account
can
access
do that now if you like.
information.
You check your account and the whole thing.
So we'll send account login information out on the 15th.
Right, from
That's our goal.
the next week, yeah.
Can we do it?
Yeah, do it.
But I mean, the last thing we want to do is say, this is it, and then we go back. and
Oh,
say,
no,
well,
no,
it's-
no, the 15th, I was trying to push it for the 8th, but the 15th is enough, more than enough grace period.
I think Kathy's smart by saying.
I
I agree with that too.
Gives us a little bit of extra time.
I'd give credit's due.
Okay, I'm gonna put something together in writing, I'll pass it around in email for some checks and change, I'm not great at that, and we'll post it on Monday morning.
Post it on Facebook.
Facebook and Town Square.
Are you
Okay,
receiving
so now
checks
to the
at
how, right?
Good.
Up until now, we have, for the past year or so, we've been communicating solely through Facebook and Town Square. I don't really want to introduce a third method, just through MailChimp and shoot an e-blast out there at this point in time. Some people might get it, some people get frustrated over it. I'm just not sure it's worth introducing that complication. Or worse, it throws everybody at it at the same time, which is also equally bad. This is going to tear everything out. Those who pay attention are going to get it first. Those who don't are going to call, ask a question and get it second.
And put nasty grams on Facebook.
And put nasty grams on Facebook, which is going to happen regardless, but at least it kind of slows down that 15th.
There's only one of us that hasn't registered at this point, not to point it out, but if you do want to test what's on there, look up your own accounts, I suggest that you log in and look around.
I promised you on Sunday I would.
And I'll resend the invitation.
I was honest. I said,
Sean,
it's not
so
gonna happen.
I've set it up and I've logged in, right, it's me. Do I have as a board member, have my board member login, which is property manager, and then a separate login as my resident?
Yes,
No,
You're
Yes.
saying no, you're saying yes.
yes,
it's the same login. His resident profile is marked as board member.
right, but he should, and you can have your own profile, and I will have, because I want my notifications not to go to my HOA.
Well, you can change your notifications, but his profile login is the same. When you could either log into the community management profile, or you could log into the residence profile page. It's the same profile. It's your same username and password. So you're either logging in as a resident. Or
Right,
you're
but
logging
it's
in-
not, it's still, you're not looking at both things at the same time.
No, but he's wondering, am I gonna have multiple emails and usernames? The
Oh,
usernames
I
are
plan
that.
to. I want to keep my HOA stuff separate from my life.
No, that's not what I mean.
Yeah.
What I mean is-
Because what I'm saying is I'm logged in right now.
Right.
And there's no way to see my actual house.
Well, there is,
Sure there is.
but that's, I
Other people.
understand what you're asking. So if you go back, log out.
Yeah, okay, we'll try it again later.
Are we gonna have a training session
Yes,
for us technically challenged people?
no,
Yes.
there'll be a full training session when we're done with this, but we're still trying to get trained ourselves before we start training others. When you log in, it asks if you're a property manager or a homeowner, and you select that before you log in. That's what dictates which profile you
That's
get
it,
to,
yes.
but they are separate.
So you have one login, but then you
Or
can
you
branch
could have
out
two.
your-
I'm literally going to do two. I don't want to be looking at the wrong place.
You keep
for the wrong
looking.
reason.
And that takes you in because you're a board member, you actually have access to that. Otherwise, residents have to use resident. And that's where you see the government panel that I keep showing up.
Gotcha. It's a bit, thanks, appreciate it.
When you're on the property manager side, and if you go to people, you can see every homeowner account on it. And
Which to his point, there's like 3,000.
No, there's 1,819
Zero.
And we only have
units,
license for
accounts,
13.
but users, yeah, there's like 3,000 users. Because they're.
That's what
On the left, it says-
throws you off.
when you click
Some
on the
have
thing that says
5.
property owners,
Their
you get
household had
3,000.
3 or 4, actually.
Right,
So-
that I get, but the account is.
There were 1,819 accounts.
Training, we have training seminars that are recorded. I'm going to get those recordings. Synology, and this way people can view them, and there's a whole PDF training guide. It is cumbersome and very boring to go through. It's gonna take a week, but you will learn a lot if you go through it all. After that, then we probably should sit and just say, hey,
There are general user
It's all
videos
together.
on AppFolio as well.
just us. Yeah.
The question is, will there be fees to pay on AppFolio?
Will there be fees? Yes. I think.
You mean for the home?
Well,
Like, Will there be fees? Yes, HOA charges fees for late fees, just like we normally do and normally would, which are postponed for next.
There's also a credit card fee if they pay by credit card.
Oh, payment processing, yes. ACH is free, credit card is 3.99.
Convenience fee.
2.99 to use a credit card and
$10 flat for.
Debit card.
that's right.
So either one, so the ACH is what we're trying to encourage. It costs nothing from our side or yours. That would be the ideal thing to do that.
Yeah, they have it.
Have you put any more thought in how we want to deposit checks?
I have put thought into that. The way that the checks are deposited in that folio are, 1 ounce. And if you put them in the bank through a mobile app, they're 1 ounce, which could be time consuming if you have 60 of them a month, which is the estimate I've heard is what it's normal. I contacted Truist and I'm trying to find out if they can give us, because they are talking about giving us a check scanner, which would give us batch deposit capability. The downside of that is I still really like digital copies of things attached to accounts so they can trail back to the mess that we have this time in case something else happens. So there's some things that we talked about there. So you could scan them in, drop them into the account, but then deposit them as well. So that would be what I'd recommend. So we'll nail that protocol down a little bit here in the next few days as I have time to come over and talk to Tom about that some more.
Have you thought about talking to the accountants about how they're expecting the account forward?
Sure, I have. I've talked to them multiple times. They are not accounting for deposits made in that folio. They're actually accounting for what hits the bank. So batch deposits hit in, they allocate it to the correct ledger line. They are not taking care of each individual account because that folio takes care of that for us.
Push this along. Yeah, it's that time. Resident input. Anyone have anything? Let us know, please.
This is my first HIA meeting. I don't know if this is the form of grievances or.
Come on up here. So we can-
Anything that might be a concern.
Sure.
My name is Brian. I live on Quarry Lake Road. I've lived here since 2014.
Welcome, Brian.
I don't know if people have noticed, but there's been a large infestation of nuisance animals in the area, in particular bats that are traveling from homes to homes. Not only is it not a health-related thing for a homeowner, but also expense for each homeowner that's doing this. So I don't know if it's brought up to the board, this is an issue, and what the board is, if it is brought up, it's been talked about, and what might be the next steps for.
So I don't know if it's been brought up, but I do have some information on it. I've seen it on Facebook. I know it's an issue. The solution is bat houses for that. I've seen some people got them installed in their house. We do have our local Boy Scout troop, an Eagle project going on right now, but they're working on a proposal for me to propose to both the board and the CBD. They want to build bat houses and put them up on the property on the CBD lake over here, over by the pool, to deter the bats away from the houses.
I haven't had them in my personal house, but we see them every night. About 5 minutes, over 500 visitors going on.
Oh, yeah. I was driving to the back fields and it was flying.
So I don't know if
I had one living in my screen house for,
I don't know, that's something
we don't
that
have.
that falls under like, fines committee for not taking care of something like that. But I know that I'm not a wildlife officer, so I don't know what's protected, not protected. Maybe contracting out to talk to an officer, find out how I might be able to deal with those things. The gentleman that came to my property just to make sure things were sealed and taken care of. When I mentioned something like purchasing bat houses on my own dime and presenting to the committee and putting them up around the lake house, whatever, he kind of said that wasn't much of a solution. So.
Because they may or may not go.
Correct.
Right, there's a bridge downtown that has them on the Riverwalk that has met, and they built these beautiful bat houses on the other side of the river, and they don't want to move across the river.
Yeah, when I'm finding just walking the dogs and stuff, like I see houses that have them and like the good neighbors we are, we don't want to be the ones that give them to someone else and say that I'm not blaming so and so for giving me the bats. I just think that.
So we've had this issue before with like squirrels. conversation. Schools and everyone's attic is costing them $5,000 to get these trap doors put in, to get the squirrels put up. It really just comes down to a homeowner problem. I hate saying it, but that's, they infest your house, you got kind of an issue.
I know I did read recently when it was posted on Facebook, one of the leaders over there. Homeowners posted double issue with the bats over there. I did read an article that they are actually
They
protected
are.
during
On the
certain,
county site.
certain amount of the year. And you're not allowed to move them or mess with them or nothing. And I believe it's the summer months.
It's true to a certain percent. I talked to the expert that was out and, yeah, it has to be done conveniently, obviously,
Right.
spaces and all that stuff that comes along with that. But, there are ways to do that. I just think that as a community, you know, why would I protect my house and then all of a sudden they're affecting your house and then they go to Mac's house and it's, we're passing the problem along as opposed to dealing with the issue. So I think that's.
Rats eating all the mosquitoes and.
Well, that's it. So it comes to your house and it's a $10,000 bill.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think just as a greater aspect of the community, we should look at this and how we can address it for each individual homeowner. Yes, I agree. We all have to take care of our own properties and we have some responsibility, but at the same time.
The county is issuing grants to those who want to build back houses in surrounding areas. It will supply the money and materials to put back houses on poles in swales and different areas according to the county's
Yeah.
website.
So, yeah, based on my reading, the accepted solution is back. There's not much else.
Yeah, I'm familiar. I've been
Yeah.
last 2 weeks and I'm pretty,
Do we need a bat mitigation committee?
and I'm not trying to be that.
I know you volunteered, 'cause
You just volunteered, sir.
You don't know you did. when you did.
Last 2 hours.
You've got a new call center.
Can you get your name and phone number for the minutes, please?
Oh, we know.
It's on 40, like, so make sure you put that in there and I'll find
I'm
it.
not happy to show you
So
where-
I know where to find that.
But I just think as greater need to avoid, you know,
Well, I mean,
dollars for other homeowners, we should think about.
so we could create an ad hoc committee to see at least.
One thing you have to be aware of is that the majority of the grounds that we're talking about that the bats come from and surround are part of the CBD and not the HOA. So we could certainly find ways to try to help encourage people to build bat houses or build them in the surrounding areas. But ultimately, there are some expenses that don't fall in
I
line.
have grazed over. I have bat houses coming, lots of them, free. Communities building them and going to put them. I'm getting size, dimensions, colors, and then we're going to present in the HOA and we're going to present it to the CB.
I think we need a social event to build bat.
That's a kid's eagle project, okay? They're doing it.
I'm gonna argue that this is not necessarily a social issue.
Wait.
But also,
Not until
It's-
Halloween.
It's 23rd.
No, this is Halloween.
Can we let the,
It's getting-
Let him
someone say
finish.
something?
Okay, go.
I think that's great. I think that's like, just from the expert I spoke to, that's his solution. But the location and maybe having someone's house who's a perfection in that to find out where they should be located and how they should be built and all that stuff should be explored. Because you're putting them over here is great, it's great for homes, but if they're not gonna travel there, they're just gonna go to the next house.
By the way, when I grab my phone, I'm taking notes and stuff. I'm gonna test that
Yeah.
it's a specific sound question, they live in a neighborhood, and that's exactly that. Part of the Eagle project is to survey the area and figure out the best position for this. So,
Like I said, I've passed this out myself, so I think it's great. For you and me to do so.
JR. Well, you're elected to do the bat houses.
I have one of the houses in front of my. And so I'm aware that there's issues. I checked.
do they use the bat house? Do they use the bat house?
I've never seen them there. I've seen them fly around my house, so I know that there's
So all around our house, we don't seem to bother our home at all. So
I just had
we have
the
them
house.
all around our house, we don't bother our house at all.
I had my painted, I asked the guys, I said, your house is as tight as can be. So for exactly that.
So they get to the roof.
Oh, no,
They
no.
get in there, yeah, that's an issue.
Anything on Zoom?
There is a question about, so the first payment in the new system would be in September.
First payment in the new system is, well, unless you're a monthly service. area. Right? No, oh, yeah, no, September, I'm sorry.
Well, have we,
Yeah, I
Brian,
know, I
how
just
many-
was answering that.
I just,
Sorry.
well, first, I just want to make sure that it was brought up to the committee that there's something that was being addressed or planning and all that stuff. I'm happy to, be part of that, if that needs to be, but, my whole point is just making sure that it was on the docket of things to address.
Not to pass the buck, I'm sure we will address it because we've already talked about it in the past at a certain time, but I highly recommend you come to the CBD and then just look at suggested thing too, which is the first Thursday of the month at 10 a.m. in this room. Or at least writing a note to them so that they can maybe get involved too, because they actually manage most of the. And
I'll be your
Matt will be
representative there, Brian.
representative too. I'm
Tell me
saying,
what.
we're just trying to make sure we're covering all bases.
Sure.
And that is one of the big issues is, the CBD controls much more territory than the HOA does.
Literally what we control is the lake house, the dog park, the pool area.
It's the lake house, not the lake.
That's it.
But the pool house, there's a $2,000 bill.
That's-
We're paying for.
And we'll have to-
Right.
No,
That's forcing our hand a bit then.
So payment September.
yes.
First
thank
payment
you for
September.
bringing
Thanks,
that
Brian.
up. Appreciate
Sorry to
it.
make you wait that long.
The overlap right now, though, is,
And thanks again for everything.
we have payments assessed on the first for all the service areas.
Oh, yeah. So okay, that's true. So the correct answer is service areas owe their money on the first, but they most hopefully won't be able to make it. So if that's the case, just hold tight. If you have to, get a check to Jennifer. Otherwise, hold tight, and as soon as the system goes live, we will then be able to make that payment. Otherwise, the next quarterly is September. And for all this mishap is the reason why we're postponing late fees. I'm sorry?
Quarterly is October.
Quarterly is October. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so most of the masters safe has plenty of time for overlap. For the service areas, they're gonna get a free 15-day grace period, but not having to pay it, and then we're gonna give them a 16-day grace period, and then a 60-day on top of that, so. Yeah, they'll pay it late, basically.
I'm just concerned that we're losing money.
Yeah.
We're really tight on cash flow, so we're gonna give them 60 days to not pay. So 60 days will have iffy impact if it happens.
And that's the reason I keep pushing the brakes.
Any other resident? Okay.
Nothing else? Did you need to discuss ARC? ARC?
We covered everything ARC related.
In nauseam, actually.
The word that came to mind, but I didn't.
Okay, folks, meeting adjourned.
Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
Favor.